I think we're live. I think we're live. Hold up.
Yep, says we're live.
Yeah, we're live now. So, hello. We are the survivors of the SJW zombie apocalypse. Um, I'm joined by my friend Spacepan, who is another gay guy who is into men's rights and is highly critical of feminism and has actually researched stuff a lot. And we have talked about that before on streams. However, tonight we are largely not going to be talking about such things, though I'm sure we will, because that's what that's how we kind of know each other. So I'm sure it will come up, but ultimately we are more here to talk a little bit about Burning Man, which I actually had a stream on Sunday night, I think it was, not this last Sunday, but the Sunday of Burning Man. Because I had heard that. So at the Burning Man festival, this is you know, some people haven't even heard of it, which is weird. I don't know how somebody wouldn't have heard of it, but I guess not everybody grew up on the West Coast. Um, at the Burning Man festival, they literally burn a gigantic man, and that's what happens on Sunday. And it's not, it's not a real person, it's wood and everything, but some guy actually ran into it and like jumped face first into it and then ended up dying not long after. So I heard about that, and I had been streaming already anyway, for some reason, and then so I did a stream where I was talking about that, but I actually didn't really talk that much about my experience going to Burning Man because I actually have all sorts of stories about it. But Spacepan just went to Burning Man and he just got back and he wanted to talk about it on a stream. So that is sort of what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, yeah. And at first we were talking about it, and like I basically lost my voice for the whole week afterwards, mostly just due to chain smoking. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. It was the first time I ever went. I kind of had an unusual experience of it because basically like my sister and her boyfriend drove in there from where they live, which is like closer, and I flew in there, so they just drove with all my shit, and I got to just like fly in there with one suitcase, and then just like have a blast, and then just like pack up my shit in one suitcase and leave. So like not a lot of people are that fortunate. Like usually there's a lot more planning and preparation involved in it.
Yeah, it's yeah.
It,
Yeah, if how much does it cost now? Like the ticket?
the ticket is like $425 this year, and it's more expensive each year, and they sell more and more of them each year.
Yeah. So
They're harder and harder to get.
yeah, it's a lot of money. And
Well, and that's nothing, right? Because you also have all your food, your bring coolers. If you have like any kind of electricity, you might have a little generator. You know, some people are renting an RV, right? This is just like the ticket's just like the tip of the iceberg. Like it's really expensive.
yeah, it's really expensive to go to Burning Man because it's not like just a festival like Coachella or whatever, which is very expensive too. But it's like a week long place. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. Like there's no place that's more nowhere like than Burning Man. Like it's like here, I'll bring up just a few photos in case people have not seen it because it really is like there used to be car commercials in the same type of desert. Like I there's it's basic, like base as opposed to alkaline and base. It's made of base mud kind of, and during the rainy season it rains and it just but it's flats, and then during the summer it dries up and it has these weird kind of like cracks in the ground, and there used to be car commercials in the same place, and most places that you look around and you can see nothing besides the flats, like you can't see any hills or anything, and it's really weird. So hold on, I'm gonna bring this up. Burning Man, Playa. It's called the Playa. Is the
Yeah,
Uh,
like at first I thought everyone was like being cute and calling it that, like Spanish for beach or whatever, and then they're like, "You didn't do much research," and I'm like, "No, I didn't."
yeah. So it is like, okay, spoiler alert, I'm actually very anti Burning Man overall at this point in my life, which will come up later. I'll explain why that is. But uh, it is like totally fun. Like it's not like you don't. It's not like. I mean, you could go there and not have fun if you didn't plan correctly, or if you like broke up with your fucking boyfriend or something, which people do. Like people, there's like breakups and stuff that happened. Oh, this is a good picture of the of it.
Yeah, there was actually an uncoupling ceremony when I was there.
Really?
Yeah, so they wanted to basically have like a little, not, not like a divorce party, but like they were a couple for 5 years, so they decided they were gonna have a little bit of a sending off, kind of mutually recognizing that they're not good for each other, and to just kind of make of it what they can, and to just kind of give a positive spin to it. And that's something kind of beautiful about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's
I
just, it's a lot of just euphoria and just bullshit like that all around and constantly, and that shit is just so infectious. Like,
yeah.
so like it really is like a fun thing to go to. Like it's, yeah, like it's unlike anything because just the social environment it creates too.
Yeah. Well, that's a part of the thing is that like because of the fact that there's so much preparation for it. And it's not simply that there's preparation, but it's kind of a lifestyle, this festival. Like, you don't live in a place where there's lots of Burning Man people, but lived in San Francisco for almost 8 years, and I have lived in Seattle, and I also lived in New York City. New York City, there's not so many. I mean, there are obviously because it's New York, but it's not like you meet people commonly who are into Burning Man. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe.
most of the people I met there was a lot of people from like either from Nevada or from like California, probably like the most widely represented people it seemed.
Well, you
You
probably
did get
met.
like a splash of people from literally everywhere though. Like I
Yeah,
met a
you
lot
get
of,
a splash of people from everywhere, but you probably met some people from the Northwest, like Portland and Seattle, right?
yeah, a little bit, some
Yeah.
German people and some. I met a Moldovan guy, and like my favorite thing to do is when I meet a European is I say, "Oh, I know what country is it?" And then whatever country it is, I tell them that I know of their country because of their Eurovision songs. They're all just like, "Fuck you." But there was this guy from Moldova who was like really excited about it because Moldova is the greatest Eurovision country. Just throwing it out there.
Huh.
YouTube
I don't
fact.
really know anything about Eurovision, but I was just going to say real quick, there's that like
American gays are the worst, like the biggest fucking letdown ever. Like it's literally the sky parted and gave American gays a gift, which is Eurovision. Like every single country in Europe acting like a caricature of itself and competing on like an international stage, and it's like the gaudiest, tackiest, campiest shit ever. And like everybody agrees that the music is shit, but then everybody violently just like is at each other's throats over which ones are shit. It's just
what is
wonderful.
Eurovision? It's like a cable channel or something?
It's the European Broadcasting Union hosts it in the spring. We can talk more about it later. There's time.
Okay. Yeah.
We're in
Okay.
the off season of Europe. Sorry, that's a tangent, but
Yeah. Okay.
just throwing that out there. But seriously, that's anyway.
Okay. So what I was saying about there is a little bit of an echo, maybe not. So what I was saying about the way it's kind of a culture, and it really is like you will meet people who will say that they believe that Burning Man is their culture. Um, it, it there's if you live in a Burning Man high population Burning Man city like Seattle or San Francisco, you can find the burner crowd. They call themselves people. When I say burner, that doesn't mean anything besides the people who go to Burning Man and they actually consider it a part of their lives. And you can find the burner crowd, and they will have Burning Man type parties every couple of months or so. And you can expect a fair amount of drugs, a fair amount of like really tacky dress up, like straight dudes with beards with long hair, but they have both their hair up in pigtails and they're wearing like a pink dress for no apparent reason.
Just like
Um
LED lights everywhere.
Yeah. And so you can find parties that are kind of like in the city that, I mean, and I'm sure that you could find them you're in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are Burning Man parties in Minneapolis. Maybe not every couple, like 1 or 2 months, like there are in Seattle and in San Francisco, but I'm sure there's at least like 1 or 2, per year that aren't at Burning Man. Um, because people are so into this festival and they they go to it and they kind of and the, you're there for like a week usually. Like a week is sort of like if you go to Burning Man, you're supposed to go for the whole week. And if you go for just the weekend, people think that you're not cool and they call you a weekend warrior. And um but if you're one of the main parts of one of the bigger camps, you might show up 2 weeks in advance to start setting up because another thing about Burning Man that people don't completely understand is that all of the crazy crap, like you look at this, that's the main thing, that's the man, and that is actually built by the Burning Man Corporation, like the people who actually throw the whole festival.
Oh,
But
fun side note, this year it was the first year that they put the Burning Man inside a pagoda.
oh,
Yeah, I recorded it with my phone, like took like a big chunk of the actual burn, which is it's a little bit eerie, like knowing somebody fucking like died during it. But that didn't ruin my video. Um,
you
most
couldn't you
importantly.
couldn't hear the screams on the audio.
Oh my God. But anyway, no, it was really fucking cool because like I was so naive. Like I thought, oh yeah, they're just gonna like light it on fire and we're all gonna fucking kumbaya. I didn't realize that when they burn the man, they like fucking like blow it up. They like have
Yeah,
like
yeah, no,
multiple
it's fucking
flashes and fireballs and then fireworks. And then like fire started cascading down the edges of the fucking pagoda and engulfed the entire thing. Like it was pretty fucking awesome. Um See, here's the thing is like it has this reputation for being this like massive druggy, dirty, hippie jam fest. But it's not a music festival. It's really
no,
like
no, yeah. I was gonna
the
explain.
music is pretty much shit there. Like everybody like
Well,
it's
okay,
not good
here.
music really.
Let me finish explaining
Oh,
the.
I'm sorry, I just totally interjected. But anyway, the Burning Man is in a pagoda. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, no, yeah. You'll get to talk all about your experiences and stuff. But I want to make sure that people have an understanding of the actual framework of the festival and how it kind of operates. So, what people don't understand, people think it's just, oh, isn't that like festival out in the desert? And like, yeah, it is. But the thing is about it that makes it completely different than something like Coachella or South by Southwest, which are all like South by Southwest and Coachella are completely different than each other as well. Like they're almost totally different festivals. But what the thing about Burning Man that makes it particularly unique is that it's based around communal participation. Everybody who goes there is supposed to participate as much as they can to make the festival. And so the vast majority of what is and I mean the vast majority, like over 99% of what is at Burning Man is constructed by attendees. And they build lots of crazy shit. Like it's not like there's not big crazy stages and shit, but it's built by actual people. Now, granted, there are grants that Burning Man gives out to people. So if you are some sort of artist collective that happens to make sculptures, or you throw rave type parties and you want to go to Burning Man and make a cool stage, you can apply for a grant and you can get money from them to do that, because ultimately it's in Burning Man's best interest because they want to have as much cool shit as possible. So they give grants to people, and then there's people who literally like the people who are the heads of the big camps. And I went when I went in 2003. I was with a 150-person camp, so I was with one of the big camps, and I'm also really close friends with. Did you go to Comfort and Joy?
no, I didn't.
You know what it is, though, right?
No.
Oh, it's like the gay sex camp. It's like one of there's a camp called Comfort and Joy, which is known for having complete open sex. Like you go into a tent and there's just a bunch of naked dudes fucking each other. And it's not a tent. Sorry, it's like one of those big. Something that you could fit at least 50 people in. Probably more like 100 people, maybe 200 people. Like these like big areas where there's mattresses and pillows everywhere, and big bottles of lube and condoms everywhere. And supposedly, I never went to Comfort and Joy because I only went in 2003. But supposedly a lot of closet cases end up going there and like having their first gay sexual experiences. But I didn't go to that. However, I'm very close friends with the guy who up until the last 2 years or so, he was the head of Comfort and Joy. And it's a big camp. Like if you I did a lot of work with their parties that they had in the San Francisco city, and they would have them once every 2 or 3 months. And I would DJ and perform and help and do all sorts of crap. Help put up decorations and tear down and run the door sometimes. And that guy, he actually made his full-time living, or he did a few other side gigs but mostly his job was organizing for Comfort and Joy. And so there's a lot of people that are like that, and so that's what people should have an understanding of when looking at Burning Man, because due to the fact that all of the attractions there are provided by the attendees, there's almost limitless stuff that's there, and it changes every year completely. And there is a potential for like celebrities go to it. Fucking Paris Hilton DJ'd this year, and Logan Paul was there. And I've heard weird stories of like back in the day, somebody met Howard Stern, and Howard Stern was tripping on acid and like hung out with Howard Stern while Howard Stern was tripping. And like really really big world famous DJs will play at like relatively small stages very randomly. And they don't have a whole lot of rock. Well, they didn't when I was there. They didn't have a whole lot of rock music, but I think there's probably more now. And so yeah, that's sort of like the general layout of how the festival operates for people that um don't know. Like let's look. This is a better picture of like this shows a lot of the camps and what it's kind of like to walk around. So yeah, now you can talk for a while.
I have they have 10 principles.
Oh yeah, I read that on my last stream. It sounds kind
Yeah,
of like communism, doesn't it?
it kind of has like a communist layer to it, and I kind of expected that to be. I think
What's up?
I'm hitting an echo.
Oh, you're hearing an echo when you talk?
Yeah, it's only when I talk.
Okay. Let's look here. Let me see if the chat is hearing it.
I have the YouTube stream open, but I have that muted.
Huh. You should probably leave and come back in.
Really? Okay. Okay.
So, while he's gone, yeah, Burning Man is like weirdly communist. They have a lot of, I mean, it's centered out of the San Francisco Bay Area, and a lot of people from Berkeley, California, and stuff.
Hello?
Can you?
Hello?
Hey, do you still hear the echo?
Yeah, still the echo.
That's weird. Maybe I should leave and come back in. Hold on. Leave. Continue. Oh no. How do I leave and come back in? I don't know how to do that on my.
In the
In
Google
the
window, they
Google
have
window,
the
they have
leave
the
call
leave
button,
call button,
and
Yeah, no, no,
I can just like
I know that,
find later.
but it's due to my hold on, let me. Okay, is it still echoing?
I don't think it is now.
Okay, is it chat test 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 test?
Test, 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 test. How's this?
You're fine.
All
Okay,
right, all right, we're good. All right, whatever. All right, great. Um, yeah, I don't know. We were talking earlier about how like ridiculously expensive it is to get out there, right? And like one of my favorite ironies is they have this little splash of like communist flavor and a lot of the reasoning um behind like the principles and everything. Chat says, "Hey Kikistanis, hey Kikistanis." Um, but basically, like it's totally unsustainable without capitalism.
yeah,
Like it really is like a secret little celebration of capitalism. Like there's no other way anything this frivolous and ridiculous and unsustainable could ever fucking exist. Like,
that
and that's
is
like
yeah, no, that
it's fucking
that
hilarious.
that's the revelation that every semi-intelligent person has after their first Burning Man.
Right?
Like everybody's like, it was really cool and all, but like you guys do realize that that was just a like alternate reality in which communism seems appealing that would never work at all if it wasn't for the fact that like the vast majority of you are like wealthy tech people, right?
Well,
Like
but even that with that, like it's totally voluntary. It's totally a community built on social shaming, and like because of the way everything is set up and the way that like the environment is and how harsh everything is, like the whole like having to survive and like not fucking up and like having enough water and everything, like it brings out the fact that like you have to not be a fucking dick in order to live, and like the society outside of Burning Man, like those skills are kind of dulled, you know?
yeah.
So like when you talk about kind of those small government principles and the community being more self-reliant and the community kind of policing itself, like it makes less sense to us. But like going to Burning Man, it actually like shows you like, see, look, like ostracization and social shaming do matter. Like you want to not be a dick to people. Like if you have a culture where like things like gift giving, but also like self-reliance, and like all the community shit, like when you have that, like it totally, you can kind of see where the voluntary thing, like it's totally opposite proof. It doesn't prove communism at all, like it totally just proves the opposite, but like it just has that little that flavor and like their description of them. It's
Well, maybe you should read the principles.
I know I read the oh yo, you mean like literally right now read the 10 of them?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have them out here. So there's gifting.
Which means that it's not simply that people gift things to each other. It's actually supposed to be a gift giving economy, meaning that you're not supposed to buy and sell anything to each other while you're there. The only thing that they sell is ice.
And
Last
coffee.
Oh, they sell coffee too. That's right. Yeah.
I never bought the coffee there, but I kind of wanted to just for like the novelty that it's the only thing you can buy there, and it just seems kind of arbitrary. But fucking would be coffee would be the first like besides ice.
Uh-huh.
Like, and yeah, and then they have decommodification, and this is the one that I have like the biggest issue with. Like they take it to the extreme of being like cover up all of your logos, but people don't do that anymore. But like if you look up like U-Haul, they'll actually give people like a guide for like here's how to like edit your U-Haul carrier to make it like not douchey at Burning Man because you're supposed to cover up your logos, and here's how to not damage it and get fucking dust everywhere. Like if people just don't fucking follow any of it because it's too hard. But yeah, but that's the part of it where they kind of they describe like trading, buying and selling as forms of exploitation. It's just like, oh, go fuck yourself. Like
Yeah.
because here's the thing is you're always making a trade. Like if you go up to someone's camp, walk up to their bar and like demand a drink, they're gonna be like, no, go fuck yourself. Like, get out of my camp. Like I don't like your
Yeah.
attitude. Like you're ruining my vibe, right? And
Yeah.
like that's a trade. That's a transaction. Like you treat someone so much better when they treat you well. Like that like that's a part of it. Like anyone who's worked in the service industry, if you've done any kind of like retail customer service, worked as a server or whatever, like literally anything that's like face to face, you understand that like your ability to be nice and pleasant to others and accommodating, like those are skills that we literally sell for a price. So
Yeah.
like doing that for free and then somebody being like, hey, you're kind of cool, like have a drink, like that is kind of like a transaction. I know that seems like really, I don't know,
No, no,
like
no.
cold and
I
calculated, but you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
No,
Like
no.
that is
I
part of a
absolutely.
transaction. Like you're always at, like there's always more than money involved.
Absolutely. I
Anyway, so
actually.
that was my little explanation slash debunk of it. It was kind of an unfair, like, I mean, you're gonna get kind of the ANCAP remix from me. So
No, no, no. Like there are a lot of people in Silicon. Okay, now I am echoing. Hold on. I think I know what to do. Okay, let me see if I am still echoing. Now I'm sort of hearing it. It's not so bad though.
am I
Okay.
echoing now? Good, I'm
No,
not.
no. So one of the things about Burning Man that is kind of weird is that a lot of libertarian type people, there not a lot maybe, but like there used to be people who were doing startups and stuff were in the late, because Burning Man really grew in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Like that's when it became a thing, even though it had been going on for a very long time. um I think the year that it really grew was like maybe 1996 or 1997, and I knew people who went there who are no longer with us, but like I knew one guy who I would consider a good friend, who he ended up dying a few years ago, but he uh was there at the year that it grew a lot, and it went from something like I think there was like maybe 5 or 10,000 people. It's a pretty big festival in its own right, but it grew from something like 10,000 to 80,000 in one year. And wait, no, not 80,000, because that's no, that's wrong. Because now there's still only like how many people go?
I heard usually it's closer to 40,000, but this year was 60,000. I haven't verified those numbers though, so I'm just gonna say tens of thousands because then I can be technically right.
I think it's over. I think it's more like 70,000, and I think it's been 70,000 for the past couple of years at least. And it grew from something like maybe um it grew by a number of times as much as it was. And and it was complete and utter chaos. This was before they actually had a city structure where they planned everything out. Here, let me show people the aerial view, because um it's planned in kind of like a city, and they have roads, but they're all circular. Um so burn yeah, this is the so they didn't used to have that for a number of years until the mid to late 90s. Um, and so there was this one year in which it grew massively, and it was major chaos. People were like driving around at night and like running. People like I think a lot of people died because people were like camping out in tents, and people would like run them over. And the guy that I knew who went said that somebody threw a stick of dynamite that almost like exploded him. Like it was like about 20 feet away from him, and it was like he totally felt the shockwave and everything. uh so um yeah, that happened, and then it got way bigger, and then it got way cultier. And but there was a period in which it was very, people in tech were quite libertarian, and everybody was kind of did their own thing, and Burning Man was, I think, had a bit more of that spirit. And then as it grew, it became more and more and more communist.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. I really don't know much about the history of all the principles and everything behind it. Sorry, someone in the chat was just talking about like it's like camping without bears and like basically there's absolutely no wildlife there. Nothing can fucking live there. Um, and I don't even know where what should we even talk about? I know that you were talking about like how you knew some people who like really got way too obsessed with it and everything. And like I can totally see how that happens because like I don't know, like you totally get. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I saw the I guess got mesmerized by the infinity thing. Anyway, but no, like when you're there, like you get so used to everybody being like super outgoing and super nice all the time, and then like there's a like when you get to the outside world again, you like then have to realize like, oh, like normally I'd like talk to this person about whatever, and like I think that from the dehydration too, people get a little bit kind of like loopier and like a little bit more kind of just like childlike and just like want to talk about
Yeah, there's a
just like
definite feeling of
whatever, you know, like there's this Peter Pan, like Neverlandy kind of feel to the whole thing because
yeah,
everybody's fucking like covered like all sparkly and covered in lights and shit.
there's
Like,
I think just an adrenaline that's like a constant adrenaline for like a week. Like you wake up and you're just ready to go and you're like, "Oh my God, I'm at Burning Man, cool."
yeah, I hardly ever slept at all. And like one trap too is like this year was I heard it was like record breaking heat, like the absolute hottest year. So at night it was a really nice temperature, but like normally you would actually prepare for like actual cold weather where you'd actually wear like long underwear and shit like for the night. And nobody ever thinks about that. Usually that's like the number one thing people who go their first year say that they didn't anticipate was that it was gonna be fucking cold in the desert.
Mm.
So I brought a bunch of really warm clothes, and then figured I would like do layers or whatever. Like if it's too hot, you can like you have Burning Man, you can just run around naked if you really are hot, you know. Or go shirt cocking, they call it.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
Yep, where you just wear a shirt cocking.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
there's actually there was a pub themed after it. It was called like Shirt Cockers or something, and that was like their theme.
yeah, straight Donald Duck in it.
Donald Duck in it. But yeah,
Um, so
wait, oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, I was talking about the like temperature and everything. So it ended up being really hot. So what happens is like the only time you can really sleep is at night because it's way too fucking hot. But that's also kind of the time when you want to like be out and about because like things are cool during the day, but like everything is kind of like bleak and like throughout the week everything gets more and more covered in that like white fucking sand. So like the life of things just kind of like drains slowly over the week. Like if you, I would revisit like a lot of the same art pieces and they'd look different like from day to day. Um, but like at night, it was totally the opposite, right? Because like everything is fucking pitch black. There's nothing there, you know. And you know they have lots of disparaging terms for people, like you mentioned the weekend warriors. You know, there's also dark wads, which is anybody who's walking around dark, not wearing like blinky shit.
mm,
And and they
yeah,
call them
yeah,
plug-in
because
players when you just
you
bring
have
your
to be
RV and you don't
very
bring anything cool.
yeah. You're supposed if you don't wear blinky or some sort of neon something when you're at night, you can easily get hit by a car or a bike or something. It like there's all sorts of injuries and accidents from that.
Yeah, but I mean, at least you might get run over by like a giant metallic octopus that shoots flames or something. Oh, wait, I didn't even talk about the coolest fucking thing. I got to ride around on this fucking awesome Mad Max fucking tricycle that had a pitchfork on the front of it and like a torch on top of it.
Yeah, I saw a picture that you could you should screen share a picture of it.
Oh, fuck. I don't, okay, I don't have any, I still haven't taken any of my photos off my phone yet, but I have the ones from Facebook.
Mm.
I just don't want to like, let me just
So while you get those, I
grab
you
those.
didn't even go by the Thunderdome, which severely disappointed me because that
I
was
think I saw it. I saw it. I was just like way too tired. I was like, no.
yeah, it's pretty it's so cool. The Thunderdome was because I had heard about that for, you know, because it's been there for a very long time. Because, you know, I went in 2003, which is a long time ago. That's like 14 years ago. So the Thunderdome had been there every year for a while. And that was like the thing, like one of the things that everybody always would talk about. You know, it was like, oh my God, they have this crazy thing at Burning Man. And so I had heard about it and I had never seen it. I never saw a picture or anything. And I am really into like hand-to-hand weapons combat. I actually studied both fencing and kendo when I was a kid and used to play with like Renaissance fair type foam buffers a lot because my sister was into that. So I'm really badass with a weapon. Like I can totally it's something I'm very comfortable with and I always have been. So I was like 21 and um I went down there and one of the first things I did was go find the Thunderdome because I was like, I have to see this, and it was so cool. It was everybody's. Actually, I don't remember if it came first or after. That doesn't matter. Um, a friend of mine that I had known for years at that point, I had probably known him since I was like 16 or so. He's older than me, and I'm pretty big. Like I'm like 6'2", but he's about 6'3", and he's was bigger than me in terms of like being more muscly, and he had taken more different martial arts than I had. But he wanted to fight somebody in the Thunderdome, and he wanted to wear armor because he had brought some armor with him. And everybody was scared, and everybody was like, no, fuck that. I'm not fighting you. And I had told myself when I went to Burning Man, I went on a whim. Like I only decided to go about 3 weeks before going, and it was because of a friend of mine that he joined up with the bigger group, and I realized I could maybe get there, and he asked them if I could go, and they're like, well, as long as he's willing to work a lot, and I was like, fuck yeah. And so because of the fact that I went on a whim, I decided to make a promise to myself that anything that came up, like any opportunity to do something that might be the least bit fun, I would do. And like how you like in your daily life, there's lots of things that you're like, I would maybe do that, but you decide not to for whatever reason. Um, I was just I decided to not do that at all and always do the thing. So my friend came up and asked me if I would fight him in the Thunderdome, and I was like, yes, yes, I absolutely will. I will kick your ass in the Thunderdome. And he was like, I'm not sure, because I was really skinny at the time. When I was 21, I probably weighed about 150, 160 pounds. And being like 6'2", that's pretty skinny. So he didn't and I was literally the only gay guy in the entire camp. Now granted, I was like a drum and bass DJ, which is kind of like the metal of electronic music, so everybody knew I was like kind of a badass, but people did not really believe that I was like actually going to fight this dude that everybody was scared to fight, who would be wearing armor. So I'll tell this story, and then you show the trike and talk again. But this is kind of a long story, just so you're clear. But this is one of the things I wanted to talk about on this stream. So we decided to fight, I believe, on the Friday, and we had decided to fight on the Tuesday, like the first Tuesday when you get there. So it was like 1 or 2 nights after we were there, and we set it up, and then we went. Every time I would see him, we would talk shit to each other, and we would start sort of like wrestling with each other and shit, and kind of like sizing each other up, and because he did not believe that I was actually going to be able to fight that well, but then he started to realize that I would be able to, based on like sort of like roughhousing with me, and he was like, oh wait, this guy actually sort of knows how to hold his own in a fight. And so then when it actually happened, he took Adderall, and all I did was drink like a fucking Red Bull. Like everybody always asks me if I was on drugs, and it's like, no, if you actually saw the Thunderdome, it's way intense. Like you would not want to be on drugs fighting in it. Like you would get hurt. So
Dude, there's like no way to describe anything at Burning Man without sounding like you're on drugs.
yeah, wait, let me show a picture of the Thunderdome, because yeah, yeah. See, it's too crazy to like describe. I don't know why I was not showing this picture, because it's like, here, hold up. Present to everyone. There we go. So there it is. Normally, there's more people all over it. Well, at least when I was there, and you get strapped into these bungee cord things that hang from the top, so you can jump like 10 feet in the air, and they give you big foam bats that they're actual like plastic bats that have a layer of foam around them, and you hit each other. And people always say, "Oh, but it doesn't hurt." No, no, not necessarily. Actually, the foam is not really that thick. I mean, nobody ever dies, but there's literally an injury counter on the side of it. That's like one of those flip boards, kind of like they would have at a little league baseball game where you flip over the number and you go by, and every day there's at least 8 to 10 new injuries. So people like totally break bones and like probably lose teeth and shit. It's pretty intense. So and so I actually ended up being one of the injuries. But let me first explain how the fight actually went down. So the guy that I was fighting against, he had to wear armor. He wanted to wear his armor, but they made him take off the top half of it because it wouldn't fit into the harness thing. But he got to wear his the leg armor and the boots. So he was wearing knee pads. He was wearing some sort of like utilikilt that actually was like an armor utilikilt, and these really big boots that were like went all the way up his calves, and they had like buckles on them and shit. So he was like fully geared up, and I was wearing shorts and sneakers and no shirt. So I was just this like skinny little 21-year-old gay boy that was severely outmatched, in terms of size and defense. But I knew that going into it, like I was prepared for that. So I was like, okay, remember your training, you know what I mean? Like that was like I had that moment. So and what they do is they give you 3 rounds, and they pull you apart. Let's look at a different picture. Um, oh, and here's a funny thing about it. Mostly it's friends fighting each other, but it's not entirely just friends fighting each other. There's occasional people that actually don't like each other that go into the Thunderdome to fight. It's like a Burning Man tradition. And I saw one of those matches, not the same night that I was there, but like these two guys like did not like each other. And one of them totally just threw down his sword and was like punching the dude in midair at one point. It was pretty fucking funny. So that this looks like it might have been that
One
kind
of
of fight.
those.
Yeah.
Sounds like one of those. God. So the chat was saying they're concerned that your laptop might die.
Oh, okay. If that's
We're just
stressing you
throwing
guys.
that out there because
Oh, no, no, yeah, yeah. I that's a good point. It won't die. It stays 11% is like 45 minutes, but anyhow, because it's a MacBook Air. So anyhow,
so
um,
like air, it uses as much electricity as air does.
yeah. So
Well, I found a picture of my bike.
okay, well,
I
yeah,
have
but
that shirt. I think that whenever you want to flip it, then it flips. But these
okay.
Thunderdome pictures are fucking rad too. It's like this is like because I didn't fucking see the inside of it, but I
Let me
saw it
let
from
me,
the
okay,
outside
let me
on
finish the
seeing
story.
it.
Let me finish the story, okay? So because people gotta this is right in the thick of the story, and I gotta keep with the train of thought of
But
the
we got
story.
into the tangent about people fighting for real in there.
Yeah, so I saw that before, and so okay, back to my fight. They put us in the stirrups in the kind of a harness thing, and I'm like thinking to myself like, remember your training. You gotta and one of the things about this is a complicated thing, but I'll try to say it really briefly. One of the things about the kendo art form, the Japanese sword fighting, they they train you a bit too much um, when you're a beginner about the mental game. Like they try to train you in like Zen channeling too much to the point where it makes you freeze up a little bit in a real fight. And now, granted, when you get more experience, you get over that, and maybe the Zen training is kind of useful. But ultimately, I still had that like thing in me where I would freeze up a little bit and like try to like concentrate my energy and stare down. And so I was doing that, and I was all like like trying to be all intense and like, and then right before we fight, some crazy guy runs up the side of the fucking. So this is a good picture of the people. Some guy runs up the thing and he's like climbing all crazy like a fucking monkey, and he's like, "Rah!" Like he thinks he's a lizard or some shit. And everybody, the camp people are like, get the fuck down. And there's some girl, and she's like squirting him with a super soaker. And there's people, some two dudes had to like run up after him and like grab him and pull him down. And he's very lucky he did not hurt himself. So yeah, regardless,
That
that
actually
happened.
happened this year at the temple while that one dude ran into the fire.
Oh,
Except like on a more serious note, because like bitch is trying to kill herself.
huh. So
But anyway,
yeah, regardless, he didn't get hurt. He just but that happened while I was in the harness and I was like ready to fight, you know. So it was a very weird thing. So I don't know, just a weird coincidence. And so finally they pull us apart for the first round and they throw us at each other. And I was still in my little like, Zen concentration mode, and I completely was not prepared for the footwork and the idea that I was really in a bungee cord type thing, you know? I was used to a ground fight where I understand my footing. So I wasn't prepared for the first clash in the air, and he fucking just wrecked me. Like he fucking hit me across the fucking face. And like like actually hit me right in the nose. I'm lucky he didn't break my nose. And I don't remember the first round after that. Like I remember I was struggling a little bit, but I was pissed. I was like, if you get hit in the nose, it's like the most, like when you're a little kid and you like are playing around with your friend and like you get hit and you get so mad. It was like that. And so they pull us apart and I was pissed. I was just like, oh fuck you. And so the second round, he had his big boots on and I had my, also, oh, the other thing is that I realized that when we were to collide in midair, I would crash against his armor. Like my legs would crash against his armor and it hurt, you know? And I had to like block to defend myself against that because he had no fear of being hurt because he had fucking armor on. And so that was like a disadvantage of mine. And so I thought about that, like, split second instinct type thinking. So for the second round, what I did was I jumped really, really hard off the ground and jumped as hard as I could so that I could come down above him. And so I wouldn't have to worry about hitting his leg armor. I came let me find another picture of people fighting because so I jumped so high that all these people keep being on the ground. These are like, maybe they changed it so that the people don't actually fly into the air, because it used to be that like you would hang, and like this is a little bit more like it. um they might have changed it, like maybe somebody got hurt and they changed it. So okay, anyhow, I must have jumped like fucking 15 feet up into the air, and I came down right on top of him, and I was able to grab his. I came down on top of him, and I didn't really know for the first split second, but I looked down and I saw his head was below me, and then I realized that his cords must be behind me because I was actually looking towards, like I couldn't see his cords at all. So I realized his cords were behind me. So what I did is I reached with my legs to feel for his cords, and I was able to trap him below me by like, wrapping my legs around his cords when I was above him. And then I just started beating him on the back of the head over and over and over and over and over. I trapped him below me and just beat the crap out of the back of his head until they pulled us apart. And that was the entire second round. And it was the most exhilarating moment of my life, probably like hands down. I don't know if there was anything besides maybe some sort of injury or something like when I broke my wrist snowboarding. Like it was like this in the way that everybody was there was at least that many people watching, and they just erupted into the most crazy cheering because they saw that I was outmatched in terms of size and I didn't have any armor. So you see the little guy, like, just like beat the shit out of the big guy, kind of a David and Goliath thing. So that was the entire second round. Third round, he was, I think he was scared. And I think I also might have like stunned him a bit because I really beat the crap out of him. Like I probably got him like 10 times at least. And as hard as I could, like he was merciless. Or not, I was merciless and he was at my mercy. Like he could not do anything about it. So then in the third round, I had gotten the hang of this style of fighting, and he's okay. I don't remember this, but he said that I apparently I utilized my fencing, and I stabbed him right in the face. Like we were about to like collide, but instead of swinging like a bat, I just totally like poked him with the front of it, and I got him right in the face. Which I don't even remember that. Which it seems like I should remember that, but I don't. And then at another point, I remember doing this because I planned it. I was. I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, it's fair game because his fucking armor hurts, so I don't give a fuck. I will do whatever. So I started kicking him. I did a double kick. I was like, wah wah, like some sort of a, kind of a kung fu type move, like a chop chop, with my legs, and I kicked him, and he looked down like, and then looked right up back up at me, like in this kind of like a shocked way, where he was like, "What the fuck? You're kicking me now?" Like, and then as soon as he looked up, I just was like, wham, and like whapped him like right across the face. So I fucking ripped the fuck out of him, and so I won. They end up kind of like pointing to whoever won with the swords after it's over, and the audience cheered way louder for me. It was they obviously thought that I won, but what happened was after we got okay, we got out and we were like, oh my god, that was so fun. And he's like, yeah, dude, we should start a fight club. That kicked so much ass. Like, I want to do that again. Blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, dude, that was so fucking cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my god. And we're walking around, and after about like 20 minutes, I realized I'm like, dude, my leg kind of hurts. And then within about 4 hours, there's a bruise on my leg that's like this 6-inch thing that's really it's like 6 inches wide, and it starts to get darker and darker and darker and darker, and then it grew to the point where it started over the next couple of days where it started to look like an orange, like someone has shoved like a purple orange into the side of my calf. And I think that what happened was the way that I was defending myself from his armor, because his armor was hitting against me, I had to keep pulling up my leg, and I guess I pulled it up in the same type of way over and over, and that was the spot that it kept hitting. Is that's the only sense I can make of it. So, but I was a Burning Man, and it didn't really hurt. It was just sort of more of a like, it felt like my calf was really tired, like if you were really, really tired from working out a bunch or something. That's kind of what it felt like. So I didn't ever go to the medic, and then I had to go back to class because I was in college, and my university was the type of university where there was only 15 students per class, and if you didn't show up to your first class, you would get dropped from it. And it was my senior year. I couldn't get dropped from my classes, so I had to go to my first week of classes. And I basically did not have time to go to the hospital. And I didn't go for like a week. So basically, I had been injured 10 days prior, had this gigantic bruise that freaked people out. They were like, whoa, it looks like your leg is about to fall off. And then finally after that Friday, it started to hurt. And I was like, oh, I think I went and they like gave me some painkillers and sent me home. And it started to get worse and it started to really hurt. And that's when I knew something was wrong. So I went back and I ended up being hospitalized for 3 days because it was infected. Um, and just being in the hospital was a funny story, but I'm not going to tell it just because this has already been a long story. But the only part that I will tell, which is funny, is that some surgeon who is like the head surgeon of the place, being in the hospital, I almost never heard talk to like a real doctor, but I talked to something like 25 different fucking interns and they were all like asking me questions. They all asked me the same fucking questions over and over and over. And finally, after like a really long time, the surgeon talked to me, and I don't know what his deal was, but apparently he didn't know what actually happened to me, and he thought I was a junkie. And he started yelling at me and said that he was going to maybe amputate my leg. And I think that
giant fucking abs says he thinks you're fucking like injecting the back of your fucking leg or some shit.
it was weird. And I was like, okay, well, can you give me some morphine? And he's like, no, suffer.
And you're like, hey, I am not a junkie. I was in the Thunderdome and my friend was wearing this crazy armor and I jumped into the air and then
yeah. But then as soon as the guy left, one of the intern doctors gave me more morphine, so it was fine. And they did not amputate my leg. So yeah, that's my big crazy Burning Man story. Personally, so why don't you talk for a while?
Okay, I have a crazy story about a pirate ship.
And there's your tricycle thing.
Yeah, well, so I wanted to ride in an art car because it was my first week at Burning Man, and I wanted to make sure that I jumped onto at least one art car and got to ride around on it because that shit's cool.
I pissed on someone off of an art car. It was an accident. It was like I was with like probably like 30 people from my camp, and we hijacked this art car, and then we were having a whole bunch of fun and we were drinking, and then I didn't want to get off to piss, and they're like, well, just piss off the side, and so I did, and someone tried to run up and get on, and I totally pissed on him. And it wasn't like I maybe sort of pissed on him. It was like he was like, oh fuck.
Okay, but here's the thing. I subscribe to the theory that if your piss is clear enough, then you've left no trace because it's going to evaporate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure it was very clear because I was drinking a lot. But when the other fucked up thing was all my friends, everybody saw and they were all laughing. Like everyone was like, ha ha ha. Like poor guy.
Man, well, I didn't do anything that crazy, but I actually would go through the program just to see like something interesting and then like either go to the thing or just like see something along the way that was distracting and then not go to the thing. Win-win. So there was this thing where they had like at like the bunnies, people would dress up as bunnies and meet at a bar, and then they'd go and protest the man being burned, and then there were the cats protesting the bunnies for some reason. It was all very convoluted. I didn't really learn much about the politics. I brought like a bunch of just like random retarded like little headgears I could just toss into a suitcase, like a Santa hat, kitty ears, goggles are like fucking mandatory, all kinds of different shit, right? So I had kitty ears, right? So I was like, fuck yeah, like it's fucking hot out, I'm just gonna wear like leopard shit and fucking little kitty ears and walk around, go to this fucking cat thing and get drunk and run around as a cat, right? That's gonna be my night. So I never found that, but instead I found like a cat pope that was doing a matrimony, and they did like a long like cat ceremony with a bunch of cat puns, and we drank Jager bombs because I guess that was related somehow. And then we had champagne snow cones, and I went into a sauna in the middle of the desert. But then eventually, later at night, I was like pretty wasted and shit, and like I just like abandoned my bike. I never had a lock with it because like it's so fucking conspicuous that like nobody would take it. Was like the theory,
or so you would think.
That was the theory, right? So I left like all my shit in there. I just like wasn't thinking. I was like, I'm just gonna hop on this art car for a little bit. I think they're just kind of going in a circle around the playa. Speed limit's 5 miles an hour, so I can just jump off if they go too far, and I'll just like head back to my bike, right? That was my plan. So I just get on this fucking pirate ship. There's a massive dock that they built out in the middle of the desert, and like people would fish from the dock, which just means that you like tie a blinky light to like a string, and then you throw it out into the desert. And like since it's leave no trace, anybody will pick it up. Like anybody will see it and pick it up. If nothing else, like you can fucking wear it so that you're not a fucking dark wagon who get hit by a car, right? But then, like, you know, it's like the perfect scheme because, like, you pull it away and then you see someone with a fishing pole laughing at you, and then you laugh back at them, and then everybody's happy. And that happens, like, constantly. So, anyway, I was over at the dock and I left my bike by this, like, massive glowing pineapple that was playing techno music. That DJ actually, he played We Built This City on rock and roll. And I, like, turned to this chick next to me and was like, yeah, we totally did build this city. Like, that's funny. Like,
Yeah.
it was like perfect. So anyway, I hop on the pirate ship and then head up on the top thing, and then I realized like, oh, it's fucking cold up here, right? And I'm dressed like a fucking thought. It's like fucking like 2 a.m. or some shit. And then they're like, oh, you want a drink? And I was like, yeah, sure. And like, oh, do you have an ID? And I was like, oh fuck, I left it on my bike. So like, oh sorry, man. It's like, okay, I can't even fucking have alcohol in here. That's fine. But like, I'm on a fucking art car. That's cool. And then I find out that those fuckers, they're not like driving it in a circle. They're taking it back to their camp, which is like a pirate themed camp with like a pirate bar called Art Bar. And but they're on the opposite fucking side of the playa because the whole thing is shaped like a clock. We were over at like 9 and we are going over to fucking like 3, right? Absolute opposite. And then like they're at like circle I, which like the last circle is like K, which is where I was on. So I was like literally as far away, like my camp and like where else my bike was like really fucking far away to the opposite side. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like jump out because it's 5 miles an hour. And they're like, no, you can't jump out. Like people are not supposed to allow that. And I'm like, God damn it, like fuck you guys. And they're like, are you a cop? And I'm just like, like, what do you think their fucking plan was? Like, they're gonna like dress this twink up as a fucking cat and then get him kidnapped, raped, and murdered, and then follow the fucking trail to the basement, opium den in the desert. Like, no, like I'm just fucking like retarded. So anyway, we go all the way back to their fucking camp. They're like, oh, okay, we'll take the ship out later and then like drop you back off of your bike. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'll just like hang out and like drink Sprite or something. So anyway, they're all drinking, and I'm just like, they're clearly not gonna like leave. I have to just like walk back through the dark, like through the desert, just like find my bike again, and like hope it hasn't gotten stolen. So yeah, I just like you guys are all cunts. It was fun meeting you. I'm taking these glow sticks. Like, do you want some water? And I'm like, no, I don't want water. I'll fucking just like die slowly. So then I went out to the night and just like prowling through. And like it's so fucking dark when you're like out in the actual encampments, like past like 2 or 3 in the morning. Like there's not really shit going on. It's all fucking pitch dark. So like it's not until you get back into like the middle like sand playa area where all the art is, where like all the people have like bars and shit and everything is all lit up.
Yeah, my camp was right on the edge, like literally on the edge of the Esplanade, which is the middle
Yeah,
part.
yeah, that's the inner circle. Yeah, that's the absolute best place to be because like fucking everything's there. But we were in a really cozy, really cool spot in like the outer circle because like we were kind of the only thing. So we would get just visitors, just like people all, excuse me, from all over the place, and they would just be like, oh, you guys like kind of the only like bar around here. We were like a bike repair shop. We help people fix their own bikes. We had, like,
Oh,
like
that's
a bunch of bike pumps. Super necessary there. We were so fucking helpful. Even I help people with bikes, which is really fucked up. I shouldn't be allowed. But anyway, so I was just fucking prowling for the night. People are just like, hey, do you need help? And I'm like, no thanks. But yeah. The crazy part though is I made it back. I saw the big docks. I saw the fucking pineapple. My bike was moved, but all my fucking shit was on there. Like nothing was taken. All my money, my passport, my ID, my water, my fucking goggles, my pants, like everything was on the bike, like right where it should be. So someone just like hopped on the bike and like rode around because it was too fucking cool, and then just like left it. So that was pretty lucky because I was, you know, probably left it unattended for like a couple of hours. It took a fucking long time to like
Yeah,
find it.
there's people who go to Burning Man with the explicit purpose of stealing a bunch of bikes to take back to chop shops and shit. It's like like they've been busted before, and then so yeah, there's a lot of bike theft. So and no matter how crappy your bike, they'll at least want the wheels, and but then I'm sure they don't even look at it anyway. It's like, you know, if you're going to be taking them back to chop shops or whatever, you just assume that there will be something worth salvaging on the bike, and you grab everything that's unattended as quick as possible. So yeah, that's why bike theft is a major problem.
Yeah, it fucking sucks. It's such a shitty thing to do out there. They have like an actual like system with bikes that are just community bikes. You can just take one, and if you leave it, then like if somebody sees it, they're allowed to take it. I think they're called yellow bikes, but they're green. That or they're called green bikes, but they're yellow. I think maybe they're green bikes, but they're yellow. I don't know why they fucking decided to do that. Some fucking like Pomo shit. But oh yeah, let me show you a picture of the bike. I don't know if how the screen share works, if it's showing mine right now, or if you have to like click a thing.
It's showing
Oh, is it showing mine right now? You
when you
guys see
talk,
it?
yeah.
Oh, I see when I talk. Oh, I get it. Yeah. So that's the bike. It's named after the painting American Gothic because it has the fucking pitchfork up in front of it. And this torch on top like lights up, which is super nice because then when you like park it, you can like see it at night and find it.
Mm.
Yeah, it was like it rode really nice. And like my favorite thing is that like the steering handlebars on the side and like the gears worked. And like the steering wheel was like attached to pulley strings that are attached to the rear steering. Like it was really I didn't build it. My sister's boyfriend built it and let me just like ride this around. My sister and her boyfriend, their bike was like a fucking super gay fucking tandem bike that like two people rode, and it like shot flames out of it. And I thought the flames were like in a heart shape. Like it was really fucking gay. But yeah, like that's one thing is like having some fucking sick ass vehicle like that. Like it's like to show off to people. At first, he told me to lie and then like say that I made it, and like I did that for the first people I met, and then like they believed me, and I felt really really bad. So I just started telling the truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it'd be so fucking cool to have like a fucking Alex Jones art car. Like it would come as Bill Hicks, and then like we would ceremoniously like kill it, and then on the third day it would rise as Alex Jones and shoot fire out of its eyes, and like just like play "We Love Our Somalis" on a loop. Like that's my American dream. I think it would be awesome to have like a make your own card shop there next to the post office. People get their fucking craft on, fucking Hallmark it at fucking we call it Burn Mark or something.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea.
Also, holy shit. So then this happened too. Like in one of the mornings, I was just kind of like bitching into the wind about how nobody was playing any Eurobeat music because Eurobeat's my favorite genre. You know, like Running in the 90s, Night of Fire, Boom Boom Macho Macho, Sex All Over the Phone, you know, just classics, like really standard repertoire. If you're not listening to that music, just fucking I don't know why it's the point of living. But so yeah, I was like bitching, like everyone's fucking dressed like they had listened to Eurobeat, but there isn't any. I was looking through the program and there's a fucking bitch, a fucking person, I should say. Oh, what was her name? Like something. She was some like fake name that was like demonic overlord or something like bullshit, right? So something like really funny. Oh, Despair Lord. That was it. Despair Lord. This happened to me twice. They had like super masculine badass fake names, and like you see them when they're a woman. But she did like a para dance thing, and like I went there, and like their whole camp was like a D&D themed tabletop camp with like weapons for LARPing and shit. And
Oh,
they had
that's
like a
fun.
red jug for health and a blue jug for mana. Like they really flavor wise, like home run. They really,
I
and that was the fun thing is that like everybody thinks that it's nothing but like sex camps and bars and shit. And like,
No,
yeah, that's
there's weird
there. It's
shit
there for
that's
people who
there.
want it, but like there's all kinds of shit. There's
Yeah, one
all kinds of like crazy shit there. Like literally anything you could think of. People make up all kinds of crazy shit. Like there were people with a museum and it was like a fake like joke museum, like where they had like a plastic bag behind it, and then they joke about how like useful plastic bags are, the history of Burning Man. And then they had like the history of the funnel, which like had just like various contraptions for women to be able to pee like men. And they had like a feminist model that had an adjustable hose so that women could point it and direct it. And then like the more modern one is like it folds up into your pocket. So they had like all these entries that were just like fake and just hilarious. And then like I just like wandered in there and I was like, you guys' museum is cool. And they're like, thanks, that's a really nice thing to say. Like, do you want some of this fucking food? And I'm like, thank you. Like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, and then I met these people who like they were like a shitty little diner that made coffee, but they were like run by these like sci-fi dorks who had like comics and shit. Um, yeah, I visited them a couple of nights because they were just like really low key, really fun, just kind of hang out with.
I when I was there, there was this really cool. Oh god, the fucking um. There was this really cool thing that okay, so what's weird about it is that it came from Seattle. When I was a kid in Seattle, there used to be this ride at the Seattle Center, which has an amusement park, like it has a small roller coaster, and they had this. It was kind of a fun house type, scary ride thing that it was called A Flight to Mars, and it was kind of a like space uh
Oh, that sounds cool. Like a space theme, kind of like that sort of a horror instead of like a haunted house kind of thing. More
yeah,
like
yeah, it was, yeah. And so like
like Alien without the alien.
yeah, it was way campier. It was more cartoony and uh kind of like I'm thinking of like the remember the aliens from The Simpsons? No.
Were they like green and really forgettable?
No, they had one eye and they well, regardless. Okay, just
I can
imagine.
only remember the aliens from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Oh wait, here, let me there might be pictures of it. I'm sure there's pictures of it. A Flight to Mars, Seattle. Because I'm sure there has to be. Yeah, here it is. Um, it's actually really not much like The Simpsons, so I'm glad I found the picture. Um, so here's the picture of what it is like, and um, that's the little guy on the top and Flight to Mars, and it was there for a very long time, and then they got rid of it eventually. And some Burning Man people bought the front of it, and then they made it into. I mean, I think they only used the front, like this front display thing, and they made it into a maze, like a kind of a labyrinth obstacle course thing. And I was one of the first people that went into it. Like they opened it up on maybe the second or third day because it took a long time to set up. And some of the people from my camp that I was friends with went over to it because it was a Seattle camp and they knew them. And so I was like, okay, I will go with you guys over there. And it was not set up yet. And I was like, okay, well, I've been waiting here with my friends, and they thought it was going to be quicker, but we ended up waiting for over an hour or so. And so I was like, okay, well, I have to go out. I have to at least go into it. But I I think I was wearing like a hoodie and some shorts, and a I had a flashlight in my pocket, and most of the people who went into it didn't have flashlights. Like, I think they told you not to go in with any backpacks or anything because it would be hard. And turns out they were telling the truth. It was incredibly hard. Like, if you can remember, did you ever see those shows on Nickelodeon, like Double Dare and shit?
I don't remember that one. I remember like what was it? Legend of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah, yeah. So they had it was like weird kind of obstacle course shit like that. Um, and it there was it's sort of hard to describe what it was like, but there was this one thing that was it was like these gigantic it was like a gigantic spiral of cloth where you sort of like walk down the middle of it, and people were moving in and out, like people were moving by you, and it turned out that it just spiraled into the middle and you just got trapped, and there was just kind of like a clump of five people in there, and it's like, oh, this was a dead end. um it was I think it was way harder than they thought it was going to be, when there was because there was always about probably like 50 people in the labyrinth, at least, maybe even more. And I think that they made it for, just a few people going through at once. And if it wasn't particularly crowded, it might not be all that hard. But I think even if it wasn't crowded, it probably would have been harder than they thought it was. And so there was this one part where it was a ball pit that had like doors. Like, okay, if you can imagine a little corridor where you had to uh there was wood, and the wood made it so that you couldn't walk through it. It was kind of like a door, right? Except for it was closed and you couldn't open it, and the only way to get through it was to go through the bottom. And there's a about maybe 2.5 feet from the ground, so that it made a hole, like a big like square hole at the bottom, and you had to crawl through.
Oh, that's really funny. That's really funny, but like really dangerous for a lot of people, I can
Oh
imagine.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
holy
So
shit.
so they had it like that, and it was probably more like 3.5 or 4 feet wide. Like it was big enough that you could get through it. So they made this thing where there was like probably 3 or 4 different doors where you had to go under the bottom, and then they filled it up with balls, like plastic balls. So you had to submerge yourself in the plastic balls and go through these doors, and people were flipping out. Like people like started to go into it, but they didn't realize there was going to be 4 of these doors and not just like one, and so and then it turned out to be a dead end anyway. So people had to go through it and then come back through the other end, and so people were like, dude, get out of my way, get out of my way, I need to, and like they were
Oh my
like
God.
screaming and shit. And so I decided that like I was not going to go fucking through those ball pit door things. Like I was like, no, fuck that. And it wasn't simply because people were screaming, which they were, but it was also because I had a flashlight in my pocket, and I um, didn't want to lose it. I didn't want it to fall out. So I decided to go a different way, and I went a way that nobody else was going. Everybody was just sort of following where the crowd was because everybody was just assuming that that's the right way to go. I went off in some other direction, and it got really dark, right? And so I pulled out my flashlight and I turned it on, and I turned on my flashlight, and in the hallway there was a little trap door that was spring loaded, similarly like low to the ground, and it said "Open me," right? And so I opened it and I looked through, and in just another hallway. So I crawled into it, and I walked out, and I walked out, and I turn a corner and I walk out of the whole thing, and people were cheering for me. They're like, "Yay! Oh my god, somebody made it out!" And I was like, I think I was maybe the first person to actually make it out the correct way. Other people went out the entrance because they were like, no, fuck this. This is way too hard. And other people jumped off the roof because it led you up to the roof. Like there was a roof on it, and like there was a staircase to go up there for some reason. And then you could, if you wanted to, jump off because apparently it was that hard. So the, getting to that little trap door was actually not that hard. But almost nobody saw it. And I literally, like everybody else that I talked to at all of Burning Man that went into that labyrinth, nobody else made it out except for one other person. I only met one person who actually made it out, and he had basically the same story that I did. He was like, "Yeah, I was my only friend that brought a flashlight, and I saw the little door, and I opened it, and I got out." And I was like, "Oh my god, me too." So yeah, that thing was pretty cool. The weird, crazy labyrinth from hell.
Oh, there was something really crazy this year. It was like a giant gray box. And what they did was they brought these people out there, these artists out there, and they blindfolded them and brought them out and put them in this box. So they didn't get to see anything that was out of Burning Man. And then they just like lived in the fucking box, right? And then what they did was they would bring people in like a few at a time and then interview them so they could talk to people who had seen things from the outside. And then eventually these artists painted a mural around them based on the testimony, based on the hearsay that they heard from all the people, right? So then what they did was after they finished the mural and everything on like the last night, they actually, the artists finally like went and left the cube, and they left a URL, a website on the top of it. It's solipmission.com, like solipsism, right? But so it's SOLIP mission.com.
Uh-huh.
I actually still haven't gone there. I don't even know what the fuck's at that website. I don't think, but anyway, so they left the door open and people ran in because they're like, oh, what the fuck is in this cube? I want to fucking see what's in it. And like they had painted over all the murals with just blue so that like So it's all gone. But
Oh,
apparently there's a VR component. Apparently they're working on some other thing, and that's why they had the URL there because they're going to be doing other things. But yeah, this website's like weird looking. But yeah, that was an interesting thing. But one really cool thing was the first night I went there, I had met this couple out there outside the man when we first went and looked at it before we burned it. And then on the last night I was there too, I was out of this cube. I ran into that same couple, and I was like, "Hey, it's fucking you guys!" Like, I didn't learn your guys' names, but I remember, like, bitch, you play piano, or not piano, violin. There was actually a whole orchestra there. They did Rite of Spring. Um, I missed that, but I did hear some strings on the wind, which was nice. But that's the thing is like you can't see like everything that's there because there's so much fucking shit happening all the
yeah,
time.
absolutely.
If you just like go out there with an open mind, you just like see all kinds of just wonderful, crazy things. Like the first day that I stayed up and like watched the sunrise and everything, there was a girl making soup by this like tree, and yeah, so we're all just like hung out and ate soup. And then I was walking back to camp, and there was a make your own pizza party, which was like people waiting in a line, and then when you got to the line, you made a pizza, and then you shared the pizza with everyone, and then like while you're waiting in the pizza line, you got to eat pizza. Then when it was your turn, you made a pizza and shared it with everyone. Just like really, it's like silly, like a silly way to make pizza, but like
No, it's
it
cool.
makes sense of Burning Man.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh my God. So like, and then I came back to camp and like my sister was there, right? And they had like a totally opposite story. Like at one point we had split ways and they went back to our camp and like a kitty corner from us, there were these people. The rumor was that they were Cirque du Soleil, but we didn't see any fucking clowns or actors or weird shit at all. I think that was just a nasty flyer rumor because there's rumors there because there's no Wi-Fi, so no one can verify facts. So like rumors are like a fucking awful scourge of the fucking Burning Man. But anyway, so like they're not Cirque du Soleil, but anyway, they had these like domes and shit, but they had this crazy party, and like they like ran out of parking space somehow, or they like stopped managing it, and people just started dumping their bikes all over our camp. And like instead of dealing with it in like a more diplomatic way, which might have been like kind of go over there and explain the situation and get some people to fucking move the shit, like they just kind of just like started throwing bikes out on the road, like because they were just like I don't know, there's like this freaked out because like you can't just fucking like dump your bikes all over people's tents and on their bar and on their couches and on their shit. You know what I mean? Like like it should have been obvious. But anyway, so people got pissed off because they like threw their bikes in the road because they fucking threw their bikes in the road. It's kind of understandable. But like a bunch of them were like actors and they like came over multiple times and like pretend to be different people. And like they would call them out. They'd be like, I remember you. Like it's not your name. Like you were here earlier. And they would just like not even acknowledge it. They'd just pretend they didn't say anything and just keep playing their character. And like one guy like pretended that he could make coffee at their like camp and they went over there and he like for 40 minutes like pretended he was gonna make it and then like made up an excuse for it. It was just like ridiculous shit that like made no sense. So they had this like ludicrous fucking story that makes like zero sense and is really fucking crazy. It's like a literal conspiracy of actors like fucking with them. And I was like, oh, like I just watched the sunrise and made a pizza and met some friends and I got some ice. Like, how you guys doing? They're just like, fuck you.
That's funny. No, that's a similar thing happened. The guy actually who
I
the one that
believe them. I think I do. I totally believe their story 100%. I'm convinced.
yeah, okay, so
Also, Sandy Hook didn't happen. It was a hoax.
okay. So the guy who I know who the guy who's dead now who went to Burning Man when it grew a whole bunch, the year in which it a whole bunch, um he threw a party in Seattle in probably 1999 where he did something similar to that. It was called Operation Mindfuck, and I actually worked the map point at that party. So people had to come meet
Oh my
us.
god, this is a real thing. This is a real dude. This was Operation Mindfuck. They targeted us.
Well, yeah,
We
okay.
were victims. It's not funny. It's not funny.
Yeah, no, it is kind of. I think it's a lot more fun to do than to be the victim of.
This one bitch like pretended to be this like Russian girl. She's like, "Oh, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid of my boss. I'm afraid to go back to camp." Like, "Oh, which way is your camp?" "Oh, it's that way." Right? She's like fucking wandering off in the wrong direction and shit. They're just like, "What do you want? Do you want a bike? Do you want to fucking watch to walk you there?" She's like, "Oh, I just want to drink." Okay, here's a shot of whiskey. Right? And fucking hours later, bitch, you haven't drank your shot. because she's an actress, fucking actress. And you know what? Even their beauty is an act.
So I they yeah he threw a party called Operation Mindfuck, and there was a number of things at it. And okay, he literally gave free acid to everybody who came in. Like it it was probably about 300 people, and it was in a private space that was used for events. And it, it, it uh it was one of the best parties that I ever went to, actually, to be perfectly honest. And it was a, underground rave type thing. But there was no alcohol being served. So actually the cops came at some point and I talked to them totally tripping on acid, and I was able to get them to leave without actually looking around. Like everybody was like totally like frying balls on fucking acid, and they're like, oh my god, the cops are here, oh my god, oh my god. And I'm like fucking 16 years old, and I'm like, it's cool, I'll go talk to them. And I'm like, hello, officer, this is a nice party, there's no alcohol being served, it's technically a private party, everybody here has invites, and there's no fighting or anything. You could look around if you want to, but I don't think it's probably the best. I don't know how much I said. But I was basically like, yeah, there's no alcohol, there's no fighting. That's really all that there is, to say. And they're like, nah, he seems like a nice kid. See you later. Like they did not care. So during this party, a number of crazy things happened. One thing is that in order to get into the party, you had to bring some fruit to the map point, and we didn't know if anybody was actually going to do it, but they did. And everybody brought fruit, and we had literally every different kind of fruit that you can imagine. And probably at around 3:30 a.m., because this went probably past 6 a.m. Like it was old school style rave that literally went past the sun coming up. Because that's how we used to do it in the 90s. And so yeah, they cut up probably around 3:30 a.m. They cut up all the fruit, and fruit when you're tripping on acid is really nice. It's really quite good. And the another thing that the guy did was, and I didn't know about this because I did not encounter this, but somebody told me about it. That he got friends of his to sort of do what you're saying, but not they weren't full blown actors playing roles, but they did what he called conversation loops, where he would this fucking echo. If I unplug my headset and plug it back in, it usually goes away. Okay, hold on. Okay, so he got people to say things over and over on kind of like a loop to the same people. So they'd be like, hey, do you know where the bathroom is? And they're like, yeah, it's over there. And then like go ask a bunch of people that, and then find the same people and ask them again, and then ask them again, and see if they start to notice. So yes, it's the same kind of thing, sort of.
Who knows? Maybe it's related, but I mean,
yeah. I mean, maybe it's some
we
tradition.
kind of smoothed it over with the people, and things worked out okay. No one got hurt or anything. It was just a really weird kind of a thing. Yeah, all kinds of fucking people are there. It brings out it's kind of like an amplifier of whatever energy you bring there. So if you go there like kind of open-minded and hopeful and upbeat, it kind of returns that to you. If you go there with a lot of baggage, then it kind of like throws it in your face.
Yeah.
But yeah, like.
Yeah, well, the baggage thing, that tends to come out with repeat burners.
Right. Yeah, and it's it's a kind of an interesting divide. There seems to be like a vast sea of people who are there for the first time, and
Yeah.
one of their principles, like the radical inclusion,
Yeah.
like that's literally we include everyone.
Yeah, except for then there's those like veteran burners who've been going for fucking 20 years that like are not completely interested in the social aspect anymore, and they like
Yeah, they call them the jaded ones or like and shit like that.
Yeah, they totally have an RV, and you like sort of see them, and they like barely say hi, and like they have.
No, and that's the thing too, is like you'll be out on the playa and you'll just see like to your left there's like a crazy fucking like light up peacock with fucking its speakers have lights all around them, and it makes the design of a peacock feather. It's really clever. right? And it's like blasting shitty EDM music and fucking, you know, fucking strutting around the desert doing its thing, right? And then you look to the right and there's like a fucking crazy, like glittery fucking rhino doing the kind of shit too. And a bunch of people are over at the peacock looking at taking a couple pictures and okay, I'm done. This thing's fucking gay. Let's go look at that rhino. That looks fucking cool. And then there's a bunch of people with the rhino saying the exact same fucking thing about the peacock. And it's like, you know, it's just like you see like wondrous things all around you constantly, and then like, but it's like never enough. And like that's my favorite thing. It's like it really is just a celebration of just not only capitalism, but just like fucking wanting more and just like never being satisfied. And like the ultimate driver of just like why humans would make such spectacular fucking things.
Yeah.
And then to fucking burn it, to be like, I'm gonna fucking burn it, and it's like, why? It's like I don't want to fucking keep it, and like I want to fucking see what it looks like on fire. Like I like to see that once. Like, just like
Yeah, that's where it gets weird. And I think this is a good point to segue into the negative aspects of Burning Man, which after we talked about the fun, because I did want to talk about that.
oh yeah, I also want to talk a little bit about like the MRA side of it because I did find a splash of that there, which is interesting.
A what?
Well, like, and I've had one-on-one conversations with people. Like, occasionally, we'd talk about like you know feminism, the MRM, and all that shit.
Yeah.
And I actually found really positive reception to that. A lot of people who were like, "That's really interesting," or people who were like one guy was like, "Thank you so much. Like, I'm going through a rough divorce right now. It's kind of cool. Like, I would never expect anyone who thinks that way to be out here." And there was actually they had like a circumcision event about like healing from it and like the acceptance of it, just kind of like a support sort of thing.
Yeah. That's a weird thing is that like hippies are very anti like people Burning Man type people. It's weird with okay, fucking hell. Fuck is it still okay? Now it's
Like the
not.
thing that bothers me about it is just that like you go there and it's really fucking cool that they did that. I took the guy's card and like I thought I wanted to go there just to thank them, but I stuck around for it. It was really cool. They did like a restoration thing afterwards too. I did stick around for that because I figure I can just research that myself. I want to look into that. But like it's kind of a slap in the face though when like they have all this propaganda about like affirmative consent and shit like that around there. That like the whole like when it's just
Well, okay, wait.
narrative.
Okay,
It's like so
that's no.
the juxtaposition is what pisses me off, you know?
Okay. I can understand how if you came from an MRA mindset and you go and there's like this like consent, make sure everything's cool, blah 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 blah. That would definitely wig me out. I would, but it is important to keep in mind that in the context of Burning Man, and it because Burning Man is a sex positive, sex party type environment in which there's like it is not uncommon to find yourself around a whole group of fucking swingers and maybe not even necessarily realize it, or you know, or the comfort and joy, the gay sex camp where it's like complete public sex, like you can just walk in there and guys will be fucking just totally butt fucking naked and you can stare at them and they wouldn't care because that's part of it, you know. um and if you're in that environment and there is a lot of substances of all varieties and people are meeting strangers constantly, I do think that there is something to be said for having a layer of like, you know, what's the word? Having a buffer of making sure people communicate what they like and what they don't like very well, because it is very easy for people to end up in situations in which they accidentally do something to somebody else that they don't like, and the person doing it to the other person is not aware that they don't like it. And for whatever reason, that communication doesn't happen, and the person who didn't want it to happen ends up leaving feeling violated, and then the other person finds out and they feel like they violated another person. And you know, it's not necessarily like they're going to report it as a rape, but because maybe it's not a rape, but at the same time, like those type of boundaries and those type of environments are good to have. It's different than a fucking college campus, you know.
Well, and that's a fair point. Like, definitely, it's a more sexualized environment. Although it compartmentalizes the sexualization fairly well. Like you can pretty easily tell like where things are going just in the terms of how things look from the outside or whatever. Like people bring their kids there, and like when I learned that, like that weirded me out. I thought like that's kind of a
I don't think it's
whatever.
cool. I don't think kids
But
should be
like
allowed in Burning Man.
I don't know. I think that there's a place for it. I think that obviously they need
No,
to make sure they're kind of accommodating for it. But like, I
no,
know I
I
do think that they partition off the weird sexual stuff well enough that like a responsible parent can like you shouldn't let your kids like run around unattended. I don't think. Like,
well, they're not supposed to.
oh, I saw some who
like,
totally were. I saw some guys. They just seemed like they
like
came out
Lord
of
of
the
the
dust.
Flies.
Just total lost boys. Like they were so funny. Somebody asked them where they live. They said, "Oh, we live inside the man." Like,
How old are they? Do you think?
I don't know. I think they're like 11 or 12. They're giving
That's
people
fucked
candy
up.
too. They were really funny. I don't know.
No,
Yeah, I
see,
mean,
no,
best
no, no.
wishes for
Okay,
them. Part of
that's
me believes that they don't really exist. Part of me believes that they just like are manifest from the dust, and then they just like fade away on the
no, no,
dust
no,
when
no.
it
This is
when
something that
it
okay. This is a big part of the negative attributes of Burning Man, and this was actually this was maybe the first thing that started getting me having me be really skeptical of Burning Man culture was when hold on, fucking hell goes driving me crazy. Okay, so when I was a raver from about 1997 to actually till Burning Man because uh, after I was still going to college, you know, and in New York City there wasn't really raves in 2003. They had all gone away. So it's not like I was really a raver in college. I would go to clubs sometimes, but mostly not even really. So my rave days were sort of mostly over, but I did, you know, go to Burning Man for that last time. But I did have some friends that would throw festivals, and when I would go back to visit Seattle over the summers and stuff, I would often go to one or two festivals that were like these field rave type things that, you know, there would be um a few thousand people, maybe, you know, 2, 3,000 people, and I would DJ at these and stuff. It was also another thing where there'd be a number of stages, you know, and I DJ'd at the main stage at one of them, this thing that happened over and over called the Phoenix Festival, and um, that was cool and everything, but it got to the point around probably 2003, 2004 when a whole bunch of people started bringing their kids. And I don't know if what I think it was that a bunch of people probably like the rave scene in the Seattle Northwest, you know, Portland area peaked around 2000, 2001. And what I think happened is that um you know, a number of people, a number of ravers ended up getting knocked up in the late 90s, early 2000s. And their kids, but they wanted to keep raving. And then their kids got old enough that they felt like they could bring them with. And that all happened at once. And so it went from like, you know, seeing like 2 or 3 kids, which was like kind of like, oh, okay, it's kind of awkward, kind of awkward. I'm not sure if I'm totally okay with that, but like, oh, I know the kid, I've met the kid's parents, and like, this nice kid, and you know, whatever. To in a few years, there'd be like 20 kids, and the kids would form little packs and rove around without their parents, like fucking Lord of the Flies, and that was where I was like, this is not okay. Like that's because like this is a place where parents go to like, you know, ideally not have responsibilities. Like that's the whole point of going to this type of festival, you know? And if you are going to take your kid along to that and then like let the kid just sort of like run around with the other kids, I mean, like they had to ban dogs from Burning Man because they had a big problem of like dogs getting lost and fucking dying. And um it's not just that kids can get hurt, it's sort of just the mentality of a kid being around that environment, a kid thinking it's acceptable to for them to be there. And like growing, and I just, something weirded me out, and I was like, no, I don't think that this is okay. Like, because I have a lot of, I think I have a lot of empathy for kids. Like, I'm good at, I'm very good with kids. Like, kids love me. They, as soon as I hang out with a kid for like 15 minutes, for whatever fucking reason, the kid wants to hang out with me forever, and like I'm the adult that the kid wants to. I don't fucking know why. I think it's because I'm extremely immature deep down. So um I could tell that there was just something wrong with the kids being out there. And I started saying so publicly on the internet, and people fucking flipped out on me. And I think the reason why is because parents really get very defensive about their parenting. So if you start kind of saying like, hey, I don't know if what you're doing is good, like I don't know if that's a cool thing to do, like bring your kids, like um they started just flipping out at me, and they got really homophobic. And it was this weird thing where like, I could have sworn that like hundreds of straight people weren't homophobic, but the second I started criticizing people for bringing their kids to festivals, dozens and dozens of people were like, "Oh yeah, you just fucking hate kids because you're fucking faggot. Fuck you, motherfucker." And it was like, whoa. No, I actually like kids. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I was the only person hanging out with your daughter, you fucking asshole. Like, like your daughter fucking followed me around every fucking time she saw me. And, you know, she was cool. She was a really nice little girl, but at the same time, she was 6. And I didn't feel like I should have to be the one to take care of her. That was my problem. You fucking jerk. You know?
I can see that argument that like if you go somewhere with your kid to somewhere that's like designed to like absolve your like to have no responsibilities, then basically like kids don't like their needs don't get to just go away like responsibilities, which means that basically you're just kind of passing those needs on to wherever they fall, and
Yeah.
like maybe it just hits the ground, you know? Like
Yeah, and that's not a good example for your, like, my the way I look at, okay, because as much shit as I talk, I was also going to raves myself when I was 15 onwards. So it's weird for me to say, like, where do you draw the line? What I like to say is this. I don't think that kids should not necessarily be like, I'm not going to be the one that's making the age limit, but I think that if kids can get there by themselves, like if they can find a way to get there by themselves, then it's cool. But if it's their fucking parents bringing them, that's weird. That's my personal verdict of it. Because, like when it's to the point that like maybe the kid doesn't want to go or something, and their parents are like, well, sorry, like we can't afford a babysitter, so you're coming. Like,
well,
that's
and that's the
weird.
thing too, is that it's so expensive that I wonder that like if some of them, I don't know though. I feel like if you're gonna bring extra like food and water and provision, an extra tent for your kid, like you totally would save on cost finding a babysitter if they don't want to go, you know.
Yeah, so then
But the other thing too is like
what
there's different kinds of like letting your kid just kind of wander around freely versus kind of treating it more like a camping trip where like you kind of like do more stuff as a
yeah,
family, stick to like family friendly camps.
absolutely. And there are
Like
family
they could totally make a family vacation of like
yeah,
just kind
kind
of
of,
it's
kind
really
of.
wholesome
Wait,
actually.
wait, wait, yeah, but hear me out. So you would think that that would be a thing. And there were some people that we knew who specialized in creating kid-friendly camps at these festivals, and they also went to Burning Man because they had this daughter that they liked to take with, and she was a really nice little girl. And I knew this girl. I think that she was probably about 10 or 11 when Burning Man happened, and I had met her prior because she was like one of the little girls that you would see at these festivals. And I remember people being like, well, but the parents who take their kids, they make sure that, only they only get exposed to the right kind of things and blah 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 blah. And you can do that. It's not as bad as it seems like it would be. Blah, blah. And everybody had these, kind of like rationalizations for why it was okay to bring the kids. Well, I found out from my friend that I've known since Burning Man, that I'm still friends with. That girl grew up and had major drug problems. And not just did she have drug problems, but it got to the point where she was like doing meth with her parents.
I mean, that sounds like a meth problem. Like it sounds like the problem's fucking meth, and then they also go to burning. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think that you can really separate the two things. Okay. Here's the thing about ravers and burners. Uh, those types of people, they all do drugs. If they don't currently do drugs, they either have done them in the past or they will in the future. It's just how it is. And
yeah, I
I
mean,
say this as somebody,
but that's the thing though. Once
I
you
say
kill
this
people
as
who have done drugs, it's like I met a bunch of people who would be like, "Oh, this is my 12th burn, but you know, it's my ninth that I remember because I got sober after my fourth, and this is part of my rehab." And there's like Alcoholics Anonymous meetings there.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, yeah, like I'm sorry, I shouldn't like you're right. Drugs are definitely a component to it. Like,
yeah, no. Okay, another thing is that ravers and Burning Man type people, like these people that are like this, people that go to these things, they're very defensive about not having drug problems. Like they're like, no, I don't have a drug problem, or they're like, there's lots of sober burners. Like everybody's very quick to tell you those things, and um, but it's kind of not true. Like, I actually used to make a joke called what does a pregnant raver and a sober raver have in common? And it was it always happens as a result of doing way too many drugs. um it it never lasts any longer than 9 months, and it can be aborted at any time.
that's pretty funny.
Yeah. And people got very offended when I would say that. Like I would say it on to like techno message boards, and people would get like all angry and shit. But it was just because they knew it was kind of true. And these people were so defensive about this like mythological idea that there's a very large percentage of raver type people that don't do drugs. They're like, there's lots of sober ravers. No, there's not. Or they'll say, well, it's like that with any subculture. I mean, if you go to a rock show, there's just as many people on drugs as there are at a rave or at Burning Man. It's like, no, no,
Well,
that's just
no,
not.
I would say that most of these people who are like sober at Burning Man, they're not like the raver type people at all. Like there's
Oh yeah,
no way to listen to that kind of music and not be on drugs. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
awful.
yeah. And so
I think that you were just exposed to like an awful like you're probably one of the big camps. You're all
well,
fucking
no, wait,
raving
no,
and
okay, wait.
shit. Like you
This
probably
was
had like exposure to like not the best like culture.
no. I no. It's
Our
more that
camp was like a
no.
dozen. We had a
Hear
picnic on
me out.
top
Hear
of
me
our
out.
metal crate. It was so
Don't don't
idyllic.
no. Don't lecture me about Burning Man, young man. Okay,
Sorry,
maybe
sorry.
your little version of what you think. No, what it probably was that I went in 2003, which was 14 years ago,
Do
and
we have like stats? I don't think we are. There's like not good numbers. There's like some hippie who does a census. Like that's it.
yeah, so I went 14 years ago, and 14 years ago was the sort of the heyday of Burning Man's cultural relevance of when it was still growing and still relatively new. And now there's a lot of people who probably got sober and but then wanted to go back to Burning Man because out of all the things they used to do when they used to do drugs, that was probably the most fun thing. And so they're sober, but they still go to look at the art. And like there's a whole probably culture of sober Burning Man people that have developed over the years that probably just didn't really used to exist. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Well, and the thing is too is like you like really don't like you just do all the same shit that the people on drugs do. You know, like it's looking at art, it's wandering through the desert, it's dancing, it's talking to people. Like,
Yeah. But okay, so let me I was still talking about okay. So this weird the defensiveness of the ravers who, and granted, this it's like that with everybody who has a drug problem. Everybody who has a drug problem is extremely defensive about their drug problem, and they're like, well, I don't really do it all that much. I mean, I only do it like once, I mean, well, maybe twice a week, sometimes 3 times, but not that many times, but usually only twice a week do I do ecstasy. and they'll say that, they'll swear on their fucking mother's grave, um, but that's just how it is with these types of people. And uh, I remember it got so bad with the way that the ravers were like that was some kid overdosed and died at a club in Seattle. It was an all ages club, and it was very it's the kind of place that this would happen at. Um, it, it, it it was very small, and it would get very hot in there. And sorry, my echo is driving me crazy. So it was very small, and it would get very hot and stuffy in there. And I think it was his birthday or something, and he took something like 6 or 7 ecstasy pills back in the day when they were press tabs. Now you usually get powder that people put into little gel capsules, but he took like 6 or 7 pills, and that's like way too much. Like most people would get super super high if they took even 2. Um, so he ended up dying. Like he actually like overheated and dehydrated or something and died. And and he was only like 17 or something. Like he was like a kid. So it was a very sad thing. But of course, ravers are so defensive about their own collective drug habit that like they, you know, if there was this one girl that committed suicide, and when it was the anniversary of her birthday, or the day that she killed herself, everybody would make such a big deal out of it, like, oh, we miss her so much, she was so nice, oh my god. But when it was like the anniversary of somebody like overdosing, it was kind of like crickets, because it would remind people that maybe they could overdose. So what happened was, there was a Northwest electronic music message board, and in its heyday it had tens of thousands, like over probably 10,000 people, which for the internet, for 15 years ago's internet, that was a lot of people, right? And this kid who died, his dad would, on every year on the anniversary of his son's death, or I think every year, but one year that I remember when I saw it, um, the dad would go on the message board, and the kid was named Tet. That was his rave name, Tet. I don't know what the fuck that means, but and so his dad had a handle on the message board, and it was Tet's dad. And he would go, and he just write something. He was like, "Hey, this is Tet's dad. This is the anniversary of my son's death, so I wanted to remind everybody to stay safe. And we lost our son really young, and I'm kind of crying a little bit, because it's really sad to think about. And
It is really sad. It's nice that he does it though. Because not a lot of people are motivated to like send out those little reminders and things. Like
yeah, but okay, so he he writes a paragraph, and it's like this thoughtful, and can you imagine being that dad, like how awful that would feel to like be typing that to a community? Do you know how they reacted?
It's like politely asking people to not kill themselves.
Yeah, no, and do you know how they reacted? They all got offended, and they started like being like, just so you know, not every
Oh my god, just like
yeah,
fucking
not every raver does drugs. I've been sober for 3 months, okay? Like, you should really not like lecture people about and he didn't respond to a single one of them. Like, he didn't, like, he that all he did was, because I'm sure he couldn't even look after the first year at the responses, but but like, I certainly fucking gave them a talking to. Like, I was like, how fucking dare you? Like, some kid died, and you're gonna sit here and like try to like give his dad shit for calling you a drug addict? Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like,
Well, and did it even direct at anyone in particular? Like,
No,
yeah,
not
he
at
just
all.
posted
No.
it, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
For calling
no, yeah,
for
that's some
calling all
straight
of
up
you drug. Okay,
cluster B bullshit.
you're
Yeah, it's
giving his
like
dad shit for calling your collective community drug addicts. Well, it's maybe, if you're getting, I hate to Kafka trap you, but your denial seems a little bit suspicious.
no, so this is exactly the kind of shit. If you ever listen to like any of the old streams that like Tara Palmatier and Paul Elam did, of like Say Goodbye to Crazy, they had that book and they did like a bunch of streams together. Like, I wish they'd keep doing those. They're a great pair. But just like that entire mindset and style of just like because if you're not really like that, or it's really hard to understand that and to recognize that behavior in people unless it's kind of explained. At least that was my experience of it. And then it's just funny, you know. It's just people acting in character, and then it just becomes a joke. It's just funny. But anyway,
Sorry, I'm pissing. So
oh, that's fine. But yeah, I think I pretty much touched on like all of the main like stories and everything I wanted to. But you have any more like
yeah, I wanted
I feel
to.
like everyone's gonna
I
come away from this thinking Burning Man is basically just like the greatest thing ever, which was my goal. Like I was the happy half of the
Yeah,
yang
well,
here.
I have not finished talking about the negative attributes of Burning Man. So what people
So
need
we
to
could just
really
end it here. Like everything about Burning Man is awesome. There's no
no,
disadvantage. Everyone should
no, because
go.
you need to understand a way the way in which it ruins lives, which I can explain to you in the abstract. I don't want to go over the many stories of people that I know who like if I had tried to sit around listing all of the dead people that I knew who had been to Burning Man or were at least ravers, I would be here for over an hour and I would never be sure if I actually listed all of them because it's well into the dozens.
That's
Like I
pretty fucked.
yeah, so here's the thing. Raves in Burning Man. So Burning Man will always have a massive overlap with rave culture. And raves and EDM for the most part the small local raves, the like 500 person um 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in a warehouse kind of things, they mostly don't really exist anymore because cops crack down on them. But in the late 90s, they were a thing. Like there would be two a weekend at the same fucking warehouse, and like they must have been paying off some fucking cops a lot.
I'm
And
gonna start wearing more flashy light raver shit just like around at any time I go out because like why the fuck not? Like I don't know why that's not the default. I wish everyone just did that. This is like a
so
part of the disease though. Everyone just wants Burning Man to be everything. But like seriously,
well,
like
no,
on
no,
our
no,
bikes, why don't we have fucking
that's
Christmas
what I'm
lights on our bikes? Why are there
that's
Christmas lights on all of our bikes? Tell me
people
that.
do that. If you're in Seattle, they fucking do that. And this is the thing.
Oh, it does in fact. Okay, good. So we are gonna make the whole world Burning Man. Me and the filthy
But
people.
that's the problem. That's exactly the problem. So you have to
I'm
hear me
gonna be
out.
the problem. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be spectacular.
No, it's not. It's not good at all because the okay. If it's kind of like, you know, um what would be uh I guess the best metaphor that I can come up with is when you have sex with someone and it's like good for the first time and then you like realize you can get it up again and so you have sex another time and then maybe the dude that you're having sex with wants to have sex another time but you're like not really that into it but you can kind of get an erection but he's into it and you sort of like keep going because you're like like you're into the guy but you like can barely get an erection. That sort of a thing starts to happen not just with Burning Man itself, which that does happen to people eventually, but more so with the in-city events. You come off Burning Man and you have this glow and you want everything to be like that, but it can't be like that and it never can be like that. And because Burning Man isn't just the flashy lights, the music, the art, the crazy, you know, people with the Dungeons and Dragons camp or whatever. It's not just that. It is the culmination of a year's worth of looking forward to going to this thing for people. And it's a mentality, like everybody shares this mentality of like we're going to collectively put forth a lot of effort to go and have fun. And so everybody there is bringing their best mood to the table. It's not just that, you know, it's just this really fun thing. It's that these are all people that are prepared to have one of the best weeks of their lives. So there's no way to make that last year round because it's not year round, you know? And but people try, right? And one of the ways that they try is they have the regional burns, and they have their camps. If they have a big camp, their camps will start throwing parties year round. And people want it to be like Burning Man. And what do they do to make it like Burning Man? Yes.
Oh, is it drugs?
Yes. Yes.
Sex and drugs?
Yeah, well, mostly the drugs, I would say. I mean, I wouldn't say people don't have sex, but yeah, it's mostly the drugs. So you go to Burning Man, you had so much fun, had so much fun, had so much fun, and you thought that you made a whole bunch of really great friends with these people from your city. You're like, oh my God, I met these people that they all were a part of this camp. I was a part of this. For me, I met people like my camp was about 150 people. I thought it seemed like it was going to be this really cool, like I was going to be friends with these people forever. But then I went back to New York City to go to college, and they went back to Seattle. Uh, I went to go visit in winter break, so 3 or 4 months later. By the time I fucking visited those motherfuckers, almost all of them had drama with another person, like major drama. Like I would talk to some, like I would meet someone, and I'd be like, oh my God, yeah. So are you still together with, Cynthia? And they'd be like, oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh no, no, no. I can't actually be in the same room with Cynthia at this point. And I'm like, oh really? But you guys like had just gotten together. And he's like, yeah, she's crazy bitch. No, sorry. No, I know that you like her, and I don't want to like piss on your parade, but, um, hopefully you won't learn about the bad stuff about Cynthia, okay? That's all I'm gonna say, dude. And I'm like, all right, I guess, okay. But then it was like that with literally like pretty much everybody I talked to had some story like that. And it was like, yeah, they weren't who I thought that they were, or like they moved in with each other, and somebody couldn't pay rent, or one dude was like going on these like 3-day coke binges, and like ended up like smoking crack all the time. And all this
Yeah,
shit.
Burning Man, it kind of attracts people who are into like drugs and partying and stuff.
Well,
Like,
and
and
no,
since it
but
has that bad
and it brings
reputation, it's
and
not
it
going to be appealing to people who are sober.
well, yeah, and it brings that out in people because they want the experience to keep going. And so
Right.
they take that mentality to their lives in the city, and then they stop paying attention to regular city life and how people connect with each other on a daily level in the real world. And they start living for Burning Man and Burning Man type parties, which of course is a temporary state. And so they start it just it that's how it ends up ruining lives. And these people for, I mean, you'll notice it if you live in a city where a lot of these people are. You'll notice it with the people who were at Burning Man with you. Even within the first 6 months, you'll start to notice that problem, you know. But when it comes to people who start basing their entire life around Burning Man, and they go year after year after year, it's often, maybe not with the sober people, but with a lot of these people, it becomes a gradual decay, and they become these weird. It's kind of like a zombie Borg like collective thing that gets very, very strange and sad. Like you can tell when you're in San Francisco and you're hanging out with people who aren't burners, who are maybe pretty smart and interesting, and that's cool. And then you go to a Burning Man party, and maybe you don't realize it's a Burning Man party, and but you start to notice that there's something weird about these people, and like everybody has like glossy eyes, and they're like kind of dumb, and nobody has any interesting conversations. And then you're like, oh, is this a Burning Man party? And they're like, yeah, we're part of Camp Dis something something. And then you're like, oh, that makes sense. You guys are Burning Man burnouts, uh it's so yeah, it's a weird way of not just ruining lives, but ruining the lives of massive quantities of people at once in a very strange way that I can't compare it to anything else.
Well, I think that Burning Man itself is kind of like a drug. Like and like people who are like really miserable and depressed and like have no like they're not fulfilled or whatever, like
Yeah,
they take a drug, they go from 10% to 90%, then they're off the drug and then they're just driven to get more of it. And it's the same
absolutely.
for Burning Man, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's like a once a year drug that is experiential, that is also happens to have real drugs.
Right. It's like a fucking it's multiple levels basically. It's like and those things would reinforce each other too, because the social aspect like encourages it more. And then yeah, so I guess maybe the solution is to live somewhere where there's not like a huge culture of it, so that you're like nice and separated, that you can get back into the regular groove of day-to-day life.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that really helps. Actually, you know what? I want to a friend of mine uh um wrote a post on Facebook pretty recently. Um and I want to read it, and then that'll be a good ending point. Um
Yeah, I actually have work in the morning, so I should probably get going. But
yeah, yeah,
I
let
can
me
stick around for this.
yeah, because it is not just about Burning Man, but it's about it's sort of his farewell to San Francisco, and is highly critical of Burning Man. But I will have to find it because it's a little. He's a really cool guy. He's very smart. He was studying to be a lawyer, but he was always going out. I would always see him at the bars, like really always. And I went out a lot, so like, um, he ended up not passing the test. But I have to wonder if he didn't pass because he wasn't studying hard enough, or if he didn't pass because the laws in California make no sense. And
I kind of want to just like try to take the California bar and pass it, like study for it, and then like become a lawyer technically without law school. Like I think it's really fun. Like
yeah,
if you pull it off, you know. Okay, so I wrote a note on my little notepad here, and I wanted to get back to it. Do you mind? Like,
yeah, you can do that
okay,
while I'm.
so remember we were talking about like affirmative consent in that camp, and like it's a point well taken, right? That like you have like a more hyper sexualized environment, and you want like a more careful standard.
A
The
hypersexualized
problem though,
environment with lots more strangers and
and
lots more
drugs.
drugs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Absolutely right. But the thing is that it's not like it's that narrative versus nothing. Like in a vacuum, yeah, maybe that narrative is better because it at least gets people thinking about it and talking about it, right? Which is basically the best free speech argument, which is that like, yeah, I want people to say dumb shit that makes no sense because then we're talking about the subject. Um, but like the thing is that what's missing is the counter narrative, which is the self empowerment, and like a person who is paying attention to like their own needs and what they want and like outspoken enough, like they're definitely like empowered and enabled to like protect themselves, and we
I
don't
don't know.
have
Not if
that
they're fucking. No,
narrative.
dude. No, sorry. Let me
And
just
the
say real quick.
affirmative consent narrative like totally contradicts that because
No,
it
but not if they're on mushroom. Have you ever like
one
been on
party.
mushrooms?
Huh?
Have you been on mushrooms?
My official answer to that is I was offered tea and I was like, sure, that sounds delicious. Then I drank it and I asked what was in it and they said shrooms and I'm not sure if they were joking.
Okay, no, you haven't been on mushrooms because, um,
No, I've never like tripped on mushrooms or had like crazy hallucinations or anything
yeah,
like that. Like
because
no.
okay, so like acid is a little bit more cerebrally lucid. Like you maintain like you could do acid and expect to be able to like climb a rock if you were a good climber, right? But you probably couldn't on mushrooms. Like it's one of those things where it's kind of like a mix of um I think this thing is just a bad connection. I need to get a new headset. Um Here, I'm just not going to use the headset. How about that? So it's kind of like one of those. Oh, now it's really good. Let me plug it back in. Sorry. Uh, Mushrooms are they're it's kind of like a psychedelic mixed with being drunk at the same time, and it can completely incapacitate you to the point where you like forget how to talk. And but you'll be aware and you can sort of move and stuff, and like somebody could start hooking up with you and you could be only vaguely aware that they're hooking up with you.
It
And
sounds more like Ropanol.
no, but it's different because like you would have your eyes open and you could be like moving and somebody could think that you're cool with it, but it turns out that you forgot how to talk and you only vaguely remember what it's like to be human. Like seriously, like we if you do a bunch of mushrooms, you get it. There's no good way to describe it. It's like having a weird dream. And um uh yeah, it's the kind of thing where people could easily take advantage of somebody and so yeah, if you
I will
haven't
say
done
in
that type of drugs.
their iteration of the affirmative consent thing was gender neutral. So I'll throw that out there that
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
was, you know,
Yeah, no, see,
which is really the most important problem with it typically. Because it creates double rate paradoxes, which means that it doesn't make sense as a rule. It doesn't pass like a universalizing test.
yeah, well, and you know, especially on the college campuses where everybody's super hyper aware anyway, it it's obviously a politicized weapon.
Well, and then they have the additional problem of like being in like with the whole Dear Cog letter on Title IX that Betsy DeVos is fucking getting rid of
Yeah.
because she's the greatest education secretary of all time. It turns out. Um,
Yeah, I could tell that she
yeah,
was
like
cool.
there's
I could tell that
kangaroo
she was
courts,
cool.
right? It creates all that incentive. So that's what's specifically awful there. So yeah, Burning Man is like less of a threat, and it wasn't like, and I wasn't like pointing at it, like condemning them. I was just kind of like seeing and shrugging. There was like a whole like mural. There were like consent, the 11th principle. I'm just like fucking like fuck leftists talking about consent.
Yeah,
Like go eat a dick. Like nobody
yeah,
on
I
the
can
left has
understand.
any right to breathe the word consent. You guys don't know fuck about it. You fucking tacit consent in your social contract theory. Fuck that noise.
Well,
That's
and
the
the other
original
thing,
fucking rape apology, fucking
and
social contract theory in the Constitution. Anyway.
the other thing is that the person who is big on doing that is probably a fucked up weird feminist because they do go there. There's not a bunch of them. I would say that like overall the people who go to Burning Man are just like not like crazy ideologues, because if you actually go to San Francisco and you meet the weird activist anarchist type feminist type fucking people, they are pretty different than than the general populace of people who go to Burning Man. Like they're a pretty different crowd.
Yeah, dude, like that's a huge divide there because like at Burning Man, it's mostly like a huge culture of people who like to create things and build things and camp and do shit, right? They're like very crafty. And that filters out so much of like the really contentious, douchey, like political shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Activist San Francisco people and Burning Man San Francisco people, there's actually not a whole lot of cross pollination.
Which is wonderful. That's why they're secret anarchists. They just don't care enough about politics. If they did, and like if the ideas were presented to them in the right way, I think they would totally all just be like the
well,
good kind of anarchists, the kind
anarchists,
of anarchists to defeat their evil counterparts.
like anarchist activists, communists, fucking left wing ideologue people, you know, the Antifa type people, they
They're
don't like
not my anarchists.
they don't like they don't like Burning Man people because they resent them because Burning Man people have money.
Yeah, I love people with money and I love burners. I include them all radically. But I guess I'm not a very good one because I don't include commies. Like fuck the commies and fuck the ancoms and fuck anyone on the left who just like has to steal labels from libertarians like it's their fucking job. You can't have a term for like 5 seconds without liberals stealing it. Our term used to be liberals and then they stole it. Like it's just like all they do. And then they even have to steal anarchists. It's like we even have a term that's like ugly and that nobody likes, and like even that has to get stolen. It's like what the fuck? Anyway, I'm a
So
little bit tired, just kind of ranting. But we were gonna read that guy's
yeah,
Facebook post,
I
right?
found it. So here it is. Most of the people I know who go to Burning Man talk an endless talk about how community, human connection, and creativity are of the utmost importance to them. Those people generally spend all year putting all of their energy, money, and talent into preparing for one pricey week in a toxic alkaline desert where a bunch of privileged white people appropriate Amerindian garments and take a bunch of MDMA to have a week long hallucinatory false sense of community and connection. Pardon me for cringing a little bit about the appropriation thing, but whatever. Overall, this is a good post. Okay. Anyhow,
No, I mean it is true. Like it's like God, like fuck the headdresses. Like
um,
I mean I don't care
yeah,
about cultural
that's
appropriation. I think it's a stupid thing to gripe about, but
it's not over yet though. So
like fuck it style wise. Like Kesha's the last person who can do it, and then we're fine.
so toxic alkaline desert where a bunch of privileged white people appropriate Amerindian garments and take a bunch of MDMA to have a week long hallucinatory false sense of community and connection. I see these people all year fail their friends and community, not follow through on promises, and make self injurious decisions about how to spend their energy and money to take care of themselves. The weekend before last was my final one in SF ever, and several friends, in quotes, made it clear that seeing me was not their priority because Burning Man was 2 weeks away. Having Burning Man be your first and only priority is fucked up. Try putting your love, energy, money, and talent into the life and worlds around you the other 51 weeks a year. And then maybe you can finally have that community you claim to want so bad. Community takes work, not a bunch of fundraisers and artistic previews for something that is yet another celebration of how straight, rich, white people yet again have appropriated something that was once queer, spiritual, and, get this, actually in San Francisco. In other words, get your priorities straight. If your actual community is not your priority, something's wrong. And my response, which was actually the last response and got 2 hearts and 1 like, um, I say, this complaint about Burning Man is at least a decade and a half old, and I don't think it's ever going to end, especially from people who live in the San Francisco Bay Area, where so much of culture has ties to the festival. It's almost as if Burning Man is one giant psychological mood swing that affects the entire area. Temporary autonomous zones, like Burning Man, are usually a lot of fun, but they tend to be dependent upon people feeling that their everyday life is lacking in how much fun they are having. If somebody is living a super happy life year round, is engaged with their community and has an outlet for their creativity or productivity, why would paying so much money to risk your health seem like a good idea? Very often, Burning Man seems to be a socially acceptable hedonistic vacation for people of a certain demographic that get to say, I don't do blank except at Burning Man. Furthermore, during political climates that put people in general unrest, like the current one, Burning Man undoubtedly seems even more appealing to people, as all they want is a complete escape from the reality of reading news stories about policy decisions that worry them and hearing about rallies that become violent. I only went to Burning Man in 2003, and it was similar. Even though everybody I knew hated Bush in a very similar way that people hate Trump, I remember a massive disinterest in political discussions, which eventually turned me off from the greater culture after Bush was reelected. The escape of Burning Man is definitely enticing, but my friend, I use my friend's name, but I don't want to read it. Um, the escape of Burning Man is definitely enticing, but like Blank gets at in his original post, it's ultimately soul draining and disconnects people from what is important in their lives. Basically, everybody I have ever known that started to base a major portion of their lives around Burning Man and related functions ended up with major substance problems within a few years. At this point, I would urge people who feel dissatisfied with reality to take that dissatisfaction and channel it into growing as a person intellectually. Internet research, reading, and communication with people that one would normally not talk to can be really good ideas. But even that is a complicated pursuit because there's a lot of wrong turns that people can take, which will make them even more lost and paranoid. Perhaps that's just something about living in the San Francisco Bay Area. The end.
Yeah, I mean it's a fair warning, right? I mean anything taken to the extreme, fucking Aristotle's golden mean, like it fucking echoes through everything. But I do think there's it kind of reinforces the point of like if you're somewhere where maybe you go back and you're isolated, then like you're kind of less at risk of it consuming you because you're not surrounded by a bunch of enablers. But yeah, they're good warnings. But I would say overall, definitely like anyone should go like at least once. It's unlike anything else. There's nothing else like it. You'll never experience anything that's like it. Like I don't know how many ways to say that. On like the social level, the cultural level, just the physical structural level that everything is blank in a desert there, and then they build this entire fucking city and all comes to life. And then like you slowly see like chunks of it disappear and get deconstructed on the last day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I wouldn't not say that. I wouldn't stop say that people shouldn't go once, you know.
we should go. We would have a blast. We should have a bar, call it the shit post.
We could have a men's rights camp.
Do we have an MRA camp? And then we can have like a dance floor called the comment section for
That
the
would be
shit
fucking
post.
actually that would be fucking rad.
Right? And then we can have fucking Alex Jones art float.
Well, because the funny thing is that I okay, so if you post about men's rights stuff on Facebook, especially if you post about it on a leftist's timeline, you will get shit and you will get crazy shit. Like you will get fucking people you've never met calling you a rapist, you
Oh
know?
yeah, people learned like not to go on my shit because like
Oh,
I will let an argument go on for weeks and weeks and I will not like I will like
oh
fucking
yeah, and no,
see
no,
it through.
you've noticed by now that like okay, we're actually friends on Facebook. The Spacepan guy that I'm talking to, we were friends on Facebook for long before you even had a channel. And I have like close to 1,500 friends on Facebook. But almost nobody comments on my posts. And there's a reason for that. People are fucking like okay, I argue with people not on my posts a lot. Not so much anymore, just because like I've been in all the arguments before and I'm just kind of over it. And I really like my PlayStation 4 to be perfectly honest. It's kind of more appealing to play Overwatch right now. But yeah, no, there I will
You
not.
know, your whole all your criticisms of Burning Man and culture is just projection. You're just talking about yourself and Overwatch.
Um, okay, I don't really know what that means, but no, the
I think you know what it means.
I don't know what it means, and I don't want to think about it in the middle of my sentence. Um,
Sorry.
so, uh, I when I know that I'm right, I won't let something go, and because I'm good at okay, obviously I'm like semi decent at explaining things to people because I do semi all right on YouTube for somebody that like makes extremely low quality videos like for somebody that doesn't actually use any footage aside from fucking slideshows. I'm doing all right, and I'm pretty good in text too. And I know that I've red pilled like a massive amount of people, like hundreds and hundreds of people, if you include YouTube. But even if it wasn't for YouTube, I know there's at least a few dozen people that I at least planted the seeds of red pilling, not just in terms of men's rights and feminism, but in terms of general regressive control left nonsense, you know? And but very rarely do I get confirmation of this. Occasionally somebody will send me a private message being like, dude, you're right. I'm fucking sick of these motherfucking racist black people who think that they're anti-racist. They're fucking crazy. Things like that. Um, but one thing that I've noticed, and this is something that Karen Strawn said, is that she's like, on the internet, people are fucking crazy, but when I talk to people in real life, I get really nice reactions. Like people aren't weird about me telling them that I'm a men's rights advocate. I and that's actually been largely true for me. I have in person when I talk to people, I mean there's certain people that I would never dream of trying to talk to them about these things. But just because I actually know that they're fucking crazy feminists. But the vast majority of people, like I've had Uber drivers that are female that I start talking to about it, and I mentioned that I have a YouTube channel, and they're like, "Oh, what's your YouTube channel?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I talk about a lot of stuff. I criticize feminism kind of a lot. Not because I hate women or anything. I don't. I absolutely don't. But I do consider myself an advocate for the gender specific issues of men and boys." And they're like, "Oh, well, what does that mean?" And I'm like, "Well, did you know that male suicide is 78%?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's crazy." And they're like, "Really? Is it really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. And you can look that up on Wikipedia. It's not hidden." But and male education, and I always start with male suicide and male education, 40% university thing. And
That's the thing is like men's rights issues. It really is just like a dozen and a half two move checkmates.
mhm,
It's
yeah.
literally just like you go to the gods and then they're like, here, do you want some unbeatable arguments? And I'm like, sure, what do I have to give you? And like put on this fedora and always wear black socks with your shorts. And I'm like, I was gonna do that anyway. Fuck. Like,
So yeah, yeah, the people are actually really, really nice about it in person when they can realize that you're nice. But feminists are such pros at throwing tantrums on the internet, on social media, that they will make it so that you have absolutely no possibility of having civil conversations with other people. And then other people start to think that maybe you're the problem because every time you talk, there's some fucking crazy feminist that's like calling you a rapist and saying like, just the most crazy hyperbolic stuff. Like everybody who advocates for male issues has been in countless arguments like this with crazy feminists, and it's always them who start it, and it's always them who make it ugly, and it's always them who post 5 times in a row. If you try to ignore them, they will not let it die. They're like, no, blah blah blah. I bet you live in your mom's basement. I bet you're drinking Mountain Dew right now. I bet you wear a fedora. Like all this stuff, and to mutual friends, it starts to
I
look.
just say yes. I just admit to all of them. I just say, yeah, I'm pro rape. Yeah, women shouldn't vote. Like now refute my point.
Yeah, I've been starting to get better at toying with them in that way. I wasn't so good when I was drinking a lot, and I would always I would get in my arguments, but I haven't drank in a few months. Um,
I am honestly getting to 50-50 on women's suffrage. Like that's how like I'm starting to wait in my hope. Like and it makes me sad.
um,
No,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I
yeah,
shouldn't
no, it's okay. I was about to,
out of
no,
context it
I was
doesn't
about
make
to
a lot of
make a joke
sense,
off that.
but like
I was about to say, well, yeah, you look at somebody like Justin Trudeau, and you just want to think never again.
it's not even that cute. I don't get it. Fucking dumb. Face looks like an accident.
So yeah, I think it could be kind of amazing to go to Burning Man with some sort of men's rights themed camp. We couldn't call it an MRA camp. We would have to come up with some sort of code for it. Um,
You mean a dog whistle like they said
yeah,
we do?
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
No, we
Like
wouldn't
we
even
could,
have to disguise it though, honestly. Like they would just be like, yeah, fucking radical dudes,
I mean,
we'll
like
take
okay, like
anyone.
we could,
We'll take anyone.
we could try to get the fucking honey badgers to go and have like honey badger logos on like the sign and shit.
See, okay, that would be so fucking cool. The problem though is like if you remember back when Allison was doing her fundraiser to get the Badger Cave, like she got backlash. People were like, "Fuck you! You shouldn't spend the money this way. This is a waste." And I was like, I couldn't believe that. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You guys don't think that they're gonna get the value out of this? Like they don't have legitimate reasons for wanting this? Like they think that like she's trying to like pull." Like the most like ludicrous and inefficient scheme ever to use men's rights to fucking extort. It's fucking ridiculous.
Well,
But
okay,
anyway,
yeah,
so I could just imagine
I
no,
don't
if Honey
know.
Badgers tried to do a Burning Man thing, like just like the backlash would be insane. It'd be so inefficient. It'd be so shat on, like blah blah blah. Blah.
I don't give a fuck about any sort. I do not
Maybe
give.
Anna Cherry.
I do
Anna
not give.
Cherry
I
would
do
be
not
fun with us.
give.
And Crystal Garcia, it would totally be her jam. We could get
I
those
do not
two.
give. I could not give any less of a shit about community infighting, about from men's right. Like, if if I ever get any like shit from fucking MRAs or MGTOWs or like it it first of all I don't like I don't get I've never gotten a whole lot of when I first started my channel I got like one or two really weird comments from people that were like crazy, but then as I started to grow I don't know what was going on, like I don't know if maybe there's like some like I talked to Paul Elam really early on and I had actually a really nice chat with him on a live stream, and he's tweeted out my videos a number of times, and like the honey badgers know who I am, and so maybe there's been talk about me that people know that they're supposed to be nice to me or something, like, oh, he's actually pretty cool for a gay guy, and like knows his shit pretty well. I don't know if there hasn't been some sort of behind the scenes forces that I don't know about that have inspired people to be more nice to me than they would naturally. Like that's what I'm saying. Do you see what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm absolutely not scared of any sort of backlash. I know that the honey badgers, any female MRA does get suspicions from people that think that maybe she's trying to just use this as a way to make money for herself or some shit like that. But I'm not
Well,
scared of
honestly
that.
though, no, men get that too. We've had like situations where like some guy like wants to get fundraising because he has some issue that's like pertinent to men's issues, and people are just like questioning that too and really scrupulous of it. I mean, you're right though that there is a specific criticism levied at women, which is that it's just a gynocentric appeal. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
but
that comes
I mean,
back.
we don't. I'm just saying, like
It's not,
we
we can
don't
just do
have to
it.
like we don't have to necessarily um raise money like we I mean I'm gonna always try to be trying because I try to do my channel full time. That's sort of like my main project in life. That's how I make videos every day. But it's not like we necessarily have to start a fucking fundraiser. We don't. I mean, we could, but um I don't like the idea of being like, oh my god, send us the Burning Man. Like that would be a really tacky fucking fundraiser.
No, no, I agree. And I'm not saying that. I don't mean that fundraiser. What I just mean though is that because the honey badgers take money, people would criticize them for like any way they spend it that seems frivolous. But maybe I'm old. Maybe I'm not quite. Maybe I don't really know the situation that well. But frankly, like I'm set up and like honey badgers were like, hey, I'd be like, shit, like yeah, absolutely, like. So like we'd
Yeah,
have like a camp that like they'd go to if they wanted to. It's like almost
yeah,
like
it would just be cool to somehow have a camp in which that inspired discussions about gender specific male issues. And like for whatever it was, like I come up with some angle that maybe providing some sort of service to people, and when they are getting that like if we like shaved dudes, if we did like hot shaves on dudes or something, like I don't fucking know, but like, and then somehow we're able to talk to them about gender specific male issues and be like, yeah, did you know that there's a thing? It's like a thing. It's not uh the the entire monopoly that you probably experience living in San Francisco or Portland or Seattle or wherever the fuck you live of gender discourse.
That's actually a great idea. Like to do like a reciprocal teach move member, where like instead of not shaving, it's like a shaving place. It's awkward to shave in the desert. It's awkward to shave until you do something. Like I didn't shave. And I got itchy on the and a man with one mouth would have been itchier sooner, and that's not fair. That's oppression.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know there's an echo.
You know what? Another thing. Okay, so if there was going to be, I'm having more ideas. We could make booths, right? And so the people would be sealed off from each other, and they wouldn't hear each other that well. And you could have two people would be kind of overwhelming for the person. They would feel like they're being interrogated. Um, but you could come up with some questions to ask the person before they get shaved, right? And then while you're shaving them, you ask them some questions about being male. Like maybe come up with 3 questions. Like be like, what's your favorite part of being a male? What's your least favorite part of being a male? If you could change one thing about having to be a man, what would you change? Something like that, right? And in order to, if they answer those 3 questions, we'll give them a free shave and we'll do it all for them. But when you're getting shaved, you absolutely cannot talk, right? So people like you and I could sit around looking at we go through the pieces of paper where they wrote down their things, and we could be like, I want to take this one. I have something to say to this guy. And then be like, yeah, did you know that blah, 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 and say some factoids about stuff, relating to his questions. And so we would never even have to say that we are a men's rights camp. And they could maybe never even know. Like, for all they fucking know, we're fucking feminists. But we would just, be like, oh yeah, did you know, like, you said your favorite thing about being a male was that that you can protect your family. Did you know that they actually lowered the standards for being a firefighter so that more women could be firefighters? People and that I like, I am all for having female firefighters and everything, but I'm also it's kind of weird that they're lowering the standards because people could die. It's a little bit weird, isn't it? So, that's strange. Just little things like that. And yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know if it would need that much structure. I think it could whoever happens to be giving shaves, they just have that conversation. Ask a couple questions or whatever question goes. Or if they don't want to talk, they just want a free shave, if they're not a dick.
No, fuck that shit. I like the structure.
The structure. Well, I guess then when you can run it your way, and then when you want to fuck off and do arts and suck dick, then somebody else can run it a different way. And that's just the beauty of Burning Man. It's everybody just contributes however they want, and in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, I think it would be cool to. I think that structure thing. I like this. Okay, that's one of the things I like about Burning Man is the weird little structured things. Like, I think that it's a cool system. And so, okay, I think that's about all.
Yeah, I guess we've gone for just over 90 minutes.
Let me make sure I didn't get any super chats, because if I got a super chat and I did not see it, I would feel bad.
No, because they knew you weren't reading it. That's why. I was reading it. Our chats, we've been having some banter.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to do a shill stream soon because I have not been doing that, and yeah. Okay, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I am going to go fucking own people at Overwatch because I'm really fucking good now because I've been playing it addictively since I got it a week or 2 ago. It's really fucking fun. Do you ever play it?
No, I hate FPSs, and I hate games where you invest effort and then don't even make your own character and have like some basic characters. So, like everything about Overwatch, I dislike them.
Yeah, I totally thought maybe I wasn't gonna like it until I understood the appeal. Like when I first even started playing it, I was like, why did I buy this? I actually spent $40 on this. God damn it. And then I realized how cool it is to be able to have a team of six, and like coordinate with your other players so that you have like a healer. And yeah, it's really fucking fun. Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, maybe I'll try it someday. Switch to like doing twitching or something.
Yeah, you have to own it though, because it takes a good 4 or 5 hours to like get the hang of.
Oh, and that's
But
a
then,
much longer time window for me because I'm just like total shit. I like only play. Like it's like not set.
yeah. I've never been a first person shooter guy either. I mean, granted, I sort of learned because I got into some games that are like, Skyrim has a first person shooter ish thing about it. And then I got into I got
Skyrim.
oh, Skyrim's I
I got
haven't
pretty
finished
far.
it.
It was too vanilla. It just didn't. The flavor
I
was
got to the
like,
first the first ending where like I had I had it for Xbox 360, and I bought it at the store, not realizing that you only get about a third of the game with the disc and you have to download the rest. But I bought the whole, limited edition thing from the PS store, and so I have it on PS4. But I know, it takes like fucking 60 hours at least to beat the whole thing. So I have not gotten around to it because I have other games that I want to play. Oh wait, I should not be streaming anymore. I'm gonna
You're off on a red. All right. Well, it was fun talking to you. And my copy of the feminist lie just came in the mail. So I'm gonna.
oh yeah.
And then we'll figure out a time when we're gonna have that shit. Do we have a time for the first stream for that?
I haven't actually set a time and date. It's gonna be in about a month from today. But yeah, it's gonna be you and I and Miss Misa, Sister Danger, and Dieter Lukem.
All right, fine. I remember Miss Misa. I'm not sure about the other two, but we'll talk and I'll add them and I'll read the book. And everybody look forward to that.
Great. Talk to you later.
All right. Talk to you later. Everybody have a nice weekend. Good night.
Good night.